Chapter 1246. Bang! The sound of an explosion rang out once again. Dong! The thick arrow once again brushed past Starfire and pierced through the wall of the watchtower. 2 arrows. Just 2 arrows. Starfire was completely frightened. The audience's hearts were in their throats. The watchtower was a very small platform, about 2 square meters, and only enough for one player to stand on. Although the 2 arrows from the Grim Reaper's left hand did not hit Starflame, it was only a matter of time before Starflame was shot to death. If Starflame wanted to live, the only way was to leave the watchtower. Bang! Just as Starfire was hesitating, another explosive sound rang out. Death's left hand had already fired the 3rd arrow. The arrow was shot straight at Starflame's head. Starfire hurriedly dodged to the side, dodging Death's left hand's arrow. The arrow passed through the watchtower and disappeared without a trace. At the same time, Death's left hand seemed to have confirmed Starfire's specific coordinates. He reached into his quiver, grabbed 3 arrows, and pressed them together on the bowstring. F***CK. When Starfire saw this scene from the observation deck, he was immediately startled. Naturally, he was unwilling to stand there and be a dead target, so he jumped off the observation deck without saying anything and retreated. Whoosh! 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 With the sound of the air being cut, the 3 arrows passed through the watchtower and disappeared into the sky. Death's left hand did not hear the sound of the arrows hitting their target. He knew that his opponent had left the watchtower, so he walked toward the watchtower unhurriedly. He climbed up to the watchtower and looked down from above. He could see everything in the Death God's left hand's eyes, including Starfire, who was running away in a panic. The archery skills of the Grim Reaper's left hand were so high that even Wang Yu was speechless. It was not difficult for him to hit his target 100% of the time. Even when he could not see, the Grim Reaper's left hand was able to force the Starfire off the lookout with just his senses, let alone now that the Starfire was in his field of vision. Draw the bow, knock the arrow. He took a deep breath. Bang! The sound of the bowstring exploding rang out, and the thick arrow hit the back of Starfire's head. Puffed! The arrowhead pierced through the back of Starfire's head and came out of his mouth, nailing him to the ground. The quivering arrowhead sent chills down everyone's spines. This was especially so for Ming Jiandaoxue. When she saw this scene, her face instantly turned ghastly pale, and she couldn't help but recall how she had died not too long ago. Even an assassin like Ming Jiandaoxue, who treated himself as a warrior, could be killed with a single arrow, let alone a weak archer like Starfire. With a flash of white light, the Grim Reaper's left hand won the first round. What? Impressive, right? Seeing his favorite player kill the pretty boy with 1 arrow, Wuji beamed with joy, as if he was the one who killed his opponent, showing off to Wang Yu. Wang Yu nodded repeatedly. Awesome, awesome. It was not that Wang Yu was being modest. It was already amazing that the Grim Reaper's left hand could play with the bow and arrow to this level. Moreover, this kid knew how to play to his strengths and avoid his weaknesses. First, he would destroy the opponent's advantage, and then he would press forward step by step, pushing the opponent to death step by step. It seemed that this guy was not as tactless as Wuji said. At the same time, curses erupted from below the stage. Idiot muscle man, his brain is all muscle. That's right. Who shoots an arrow at someone's head? How uncultured. Uncle Policeman, it's this shameless man who hurt people. Hades, get out of the gaming circle. Everyone was speechless. Even Grim Reaper's left hand didn't know whether to laugh or cry. By now, Wang Yu understood why Wuji said good shoes don't tread on dog shit. Wang Yu hadn't interacted with Skyfire's players before, so he didn't know much about them. However, their fans were like flies that attracted their ire. It was just as Wuji had said. Hades' players were incredibly strong, and Skyfire's newbies couldn't keep up. The duel was a test of individual strength, and the results were obvious. After Starfire was defeated, he lost 3 more in a row. In the final round, Skyfire's captain, Samadhi True Fire, couldn't sit still any longer and chose to take the field. At the same time, Hades chose their 5th player, Thunderbolt Blade. Thunderbolt Blade? The Quanjin crowd was at a loss when they heard the host's introduction. Skyfire's players were all familiar with each other, with names like Left Hand, Right Hand, Five Ladies coming out of their mouths. But this was the first time they'd heard of Thunderbolt Blade. Could it be a newcomer? Just as everyone was rubbing their chins, the camera zoomed in on the two. Samadhi Truefire was a famous fire mage. Not only was he handsome, but he also had a team to promote him. He was dressed in a fiery red robe and held a flaming staff in his hand. It was a fitting description for his name. As soon as he stepped onto the field, a wave of screams rang out. The non-Skyfire fans couldn't help but mourn for his opponent for 3 minutes. If they'd killed him, they'd be slapped with a brick the moment they stepped out. But when the camera zoomed in on Thunderbolt Blade's face, Chuanjin and the others were stunned. After a long time, everyone turned to look at the dumbfounded Bao San. Bao San stared at Thunderbolt Blade, muttering, Mark? Tisk TSK. Wang Yu shook his head. He didn't expect Bao San's love rival to join the team of Bao San's idol. Reality was even more painful than novels. Wu Ji and the others looked like they were about to cry. They looked at Thunderbolt Blade, then at Bao San. They didn't know if they should support Underworld or not. Brother San, this is a personal grudge between you and that grandson, right? Wu Ji asked in a low voice. Yeah. Bao San nodded. If that's the case, Underworld, all the best. Wu Ji cautiously called out. Everyone was shocked and quickly distanced themselves from Bao San. But they thought Bao San would be angry. Who knew he would say, all the best. When the time comes, I'll personally send you to hell. TSK. Wang Yu exclaimed again. They were all young people. Although they knew the principle of parting ways on good terms, when it came to themselves, no one would laugh it off. As they spoke, the two were already running towards the high ground. Thunderbolt Blade was a warrior, but he'd added quite a bit of agility to his speed. As a mage, Samadhi Truefire should be a bit slower, but he wasn't slow either. Looking at Samadhi Truefire's status, there was a whirlwind above his head. It was obvious he'd used wind magic to increase his speed. Samadhi Truefire sped along the way, but he was still a bit faster than Thunderbolt Blade. When Thunderbolt Blade was less than 10 meters from the observation deck, Samadhi Truefire leapt up. The Skyfire fan screamed, Samadhi is so cool. Chapter 1247. Answer my ass. Wang Yu was speechless. They were fighting with their lives on the line. It wasn't like they were competing to see who could run faster. Although Wang Yu didn't like Rapid Lightning Sword, Wang Yu couldn't support Samadhi Truefire's fans. Of course, disliking him was one thing, but Samadhi Truefire still had a few tricks up his sleeve. After occupying the highest vantage point, Samadhi Truefire slashed the ground. Whoosh! A wall of fire blocked Rapid Lightning Sword 10 meters away. At the same time, he raised his left hand, and a fire dragon flew out from his palm, pouncing towards Rapid Lightning Sword. In the blink of an eye, Rapid Lightning Sword was swallowed up by Samadhi Truefire. This was why mages were the bane of warriors. Mages' attacks made it impossible for warriors to fight back. And this was only a fire mage. If it was an ice mage, the warrior wouldn't even be able to run. But just when everyone thought Rapid Lightning Sword was dead for sure, he turned around and charged back the way he came, dodging Samadhi Truefire's spell. Samadhi Truefire was the bane of Rapid Lightning Sword's class, and now that he had the advantage, he naturally wouldn't let Rapid Lightning Sword escape. Without a word, he chased after him. Rapid Lightning Sword didn't even look back, running towards the highest vantage point with Samadhi Truefire. Seeing this, Bao San speculated maliciously. Is this Rapid Lightning Sword scared out of his wits? Why isn't he turning back to fight back? Wu Ji couldn't help but sneer. What do you know? Don't chase a cornered enemy. Who gave him the confidence to chase after such an obvious bait? Wang Yu smiled, his die-hard fan. Oh, hearing this, the Chuanjin members raised their heads to look at the excited fans in the audience, nodding in unison. The players of Team Skyfire were able to enter the professional scene at such a young age. They all had great potential, and if they played the game seriously, their skill level could be trained. Unfortunately, this group of people were supported by their die-hard fans. They had money to spend even without winning the competition. As time passed, not only did their abilities not improve, but they were also worse than before. Take the first match as an example. This group of people didn't think of countermeasures according to the situation at all. They fought as soon as they came up, acting on their own whims. It was obvious that they lacked training, so they were led by the nose by their opponents all the way. This match was no exception. This true Samadhi fire didn't even think before chasing after his opponent. He thought he was very handsome. He really didn't have any tactical sense. While everyone was talking and laughing, the true Samadhi fire was brought down from the high ground by the rapid thundersword. Watcher Island was a dilapidated island. Other than the high ground, which provided a clear view, there were bunkers everywhere. Once he was on high ground, the rapid thunder sword used the smoke to escape from the true Samadhi fire's sight. Mages and archers were both long-range professions that required a high field of vision. Without a field of vision, the true Samadhi fire would not be able to aim at the target, and its firepower advantage would be reduced by more than half. When the true Samadhi fire saw that it had lost the swift thunder sword, it began to panic. It turned around and ran towards the high ground. The reason why the swift thunder sword ran was because it couldn't withstand the true Samadhi fire's firepower head-on. When the true Samadhi fire turned around, it didn't matter, but the swift thunder sword was shocked. Lowering his head, leaning over and colliding, the swift thunder sword quickly moved behind the true Samadhi fire, took out a long and thin sword that was as long as a needle, and stabbed it into the true Samadhi fire's back. In a fight between experts, a single flaw could determine the winner. Moreover, the true Samadhi fire revealed such a huge flaw. Stab! The true Samadhi fire lost its balance from the stab. Then, the swift thunder sword turned around, grabbed the hilt with both hands, and flicked upwards. Rise of the Dragon. The true Samadhi fire, who couldn't stand steadily, was knocked into the air. The swift thunder sword's blade flashed with a thunderbolt, and it shouted, "Thunderbolt stab!" The sword in the swift thunder sword's hand stabbed into the true Samadhi fire's body with streaks of thunderbolt. The HP bar on the true Samadhi fire's head dropped bit by bit. In the end, the swift thunder sword pierced through its neck, and it turned into a ray of light with hatred. Did you see that? That's a classic example of brainlessness. Seeing the true Samadhi fire get stabbed to death so easily, Wuji shook his head helplessly. But Hades seems to have a brain this time. As he spoke, Wuji pointed at the swift thunder sword on the stage. Really? Bao-san rolled his eyes. No matter how I look at him, he looks like an idiot. Huh? Wuji patted Bao-san on the shoulder. Idiots don't know how to use the terrain. When there's a huge disparity in strength between us and the enemy, they know how to use the environment to win. That's a brain. The Swift Thunder Sword's victory didn't escape the curses of Skyfire Team's fans. However, the Swift Thunder Sword kid wasn't bad-looking, so the curses weren't as bad as the Grim Reaper's left hand and the others. After being scolded for no reason, no one would have a good temper. Since they were fans of the Skyfire Battle Team, it was only natural that the Netherworld King realm experts would vent their anger on them. Hades' strength and tactics were far superior to their opponents. No matter how loud their fans were, they couldn't raise Skyfire Team's stats. As expected, Skyfire Team suffered a crushing defeat at the hands of Hades. The rest of the matches didn't have much meaning. Either their opponents were too strong or they were too weak. Around 5 in the afternoon, all 8 matches were over. 8 teams advanced to the next day's matches. Sky Dragon, with War God Ning Jing's Yuan, was a dark horse this time. They easily made it to the quarterfinals, leaving everyone dumbfounded. After the competition, just as the people from the Quanjin sect were about to leave the arena, they saw a group of people from the Netherworld King's realm playing the Swift Lightning Sword. Since it's an online game, it's best to use the online name. They walked over to Chuanjin's side. Chuanjin, who had been about to leave, stopped in their tracks. Hey! The Swift Thunder Sword raised his chin provocatively at Bao-san. You had a good match today. You laid down well. Of the 3 matches, Bao-san was the only one to show his face. He'd taken advantage of Wang Yu to avoid being blasted to death by the turrets. Bao-san's face flushed red at the Swift Thunder Sword's taunt. Wuji smiled. You're not bad yourself. You know how to suck up to Hades. You? The swift thunder sword was taken aback by Wuji's words. His face twisted in anger. As for the others from the Netherworld King realm, they all revealed satisfied smiles. One couldn't help but say that this boy Wuji was an expert in bewitching the hearts of others. Not only did he suppress Rapid Thundersword, but he also increased the favorable impression that the people of the Netherworld King realm had of him. At the same time, he also created a barrier between Rapid Thunder Sword's new member and the old members. Ha! Baosan laughed at the swift Thunder Sword's expression. I'm just sucking up to them. What's there to be embarrassed about? Look at how steady I'm lying. Oomph. My girlfriend's waiting for me. I'm leaving. Chapter 1248. TSK. Not only did he fail to show off, he was forced to feed others dog food. Rapid Thunder Sword was indeed vicious. Fortunately, the people from Underworld were used to his style. The people from Chuanjin had been trained to adapt to all kinds of dog food under Wang Yu and his wife's abusive behavior. Otherwise, he could forget about leaving today just because of what he had said. After Rapid Thunder Sword left, Death's left hand came forward and cupped his hands at Wuji. Mr. Wuji, how have you been since we parted ways in Afterglow City? Death's left hand was a straightforward person. The two of them met for the first time and did not say anything nice. Even if he didn't have anything to say, he couldn't bring up the matter of the Netherworld Kings group besieging the Quanjun sect in Afterglow City. Wasn't that an obvious provocation? Sure enough, hearing Death's left hand's words, the faces of the people from Chuanjin darkened, especially Ming Jian Daoxue. This guy died in the hands of Death's left hand. It was a miserable death. When Death's left hand mentioned this, Ming Jian Daoxue felt cold. I'm fine. However, Wuji smiled and said, how did you leave after that? In the end, it was still Wuji. At that time, the people from Underworld did not have much of an advantage against Chuanjin and were blocked at the resurrection point. Wuji smiled and fought back. Ha! Death's left hand laughed. Forget it. Let's not talk about those unpleasant things. Then, Death's left hand looked at Wang Yu and said, this must be Brother Iron Ox. Well said. Wang Yu nodded. I watched your match. Death's left hand sighed. It's a pity I didn't meet you in Afterglow City. Likewise, Wang Yu smiled faintly. But you should feel lucky. Hearing Wang Yu's words, Death's left hand was taken aback. Feel lucky? Death's left hand had played games for a long time and had never seen such a crazy guy. Of course, the Grim Reaper's left hand didn't know that Wang Yu was speaking from the bottom of his heart. After coming to his senses, Death's left hand sized up Wang Yu and said in a hostile tone, you're very confident. It's just so. Wang Yu said modestly. I haven't lost a single fight until now. Everyone from the Netherworld King realm was dumbfounded. This was the Pro League, and experts were as common as the clouds. He dared to say that he had never lost a fight. This kid was crazy enough. I'll see you at the tournament. Grim Reaper's left hand cupped his hands at Wang Yu again before leaving with his subordinates. After watching the Grim Reaper's left hand leave, the people of Chuanjin stared at Wang Yu with their mouths agape and said, Nyoge, I used to think that you were a low-profile person. I didn't expect you to be so cool when you pretend to be cool. Acting cool? Wang Yu smiled and said, that's not true. I'm telling the truth. Don't you know that? Everyone, alright, he was purely addicted to acting cool. Tomorrow was the quarterfinals, and the remaining teams were all first-rate teams in the country. The opponents were getting stronger, and the players were getting more and more nervous, especially the Sky Dragon team. After experiencing so many hardships, they finally squeezed into the quarterfinals, and they had to be careful with every step they took. If professional players were like this, then the amateurs of Chuanjin didn't need to be mentioned. After the tournament, this group of people didn't go out to play, but stayed in the hotel to study their opponents. There was still a gap between Chuanjin and the real experts. It wasn't as easy to win the tournament with just Wang Yu and the others. In the first battle, even if Wang Yu and the others all went on stage, they only had the confidence to get 3 points. The second round was a random battle. If Wang Yu and the others couldn't go on stage, they would lose 10 points. In this way, in the last group battle, they had to ensure that their players had a survival rate of more than 9. The opponents were all second-to-none experts in the country. Out of 10 people on the battlefield, 9 would survive. This was not easy. In the hotel room, Wuji pointed at the team introduction on the wall, 9 states team, the number 1 team in the country for 5 consecutive years. Everyone should know this. I don't know. Wang Yu raised his hand. Wuji ignored Wang Yu and continued. Their captain, 5 Lakes 4 Seas, is a top expert in the industry. He was once the vice president of the Three Fiends Village and fought with me. You saw what happened to the Three Fiends Village. Don't brag. Everyone said angrily, tell us the truth. The truth? Wuji sneered. The members of 9 states team are the top professional players in the industry. You guys, other than those 3 who play with Kung Fu, have 0 chance of winning against them. Is it that exaggerated? Wang Yu asked in surprise. Wang Yu understood Wuji. No matter how strong an expert was, he would only be a little stronger than trash. This was the first time Wang Yu saw him introduce opponents like this. If even he felt that the opponent was strong, then the opponent must be strong. Wuji said shamelessly, it's not exaggerated at all. After all, he lost to me. F*CK, 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 F*CK off. Everyone was furious again. Wang Yu finally came back to his senses. This grandson bragged so much about the 5 Lakes and 4 Seas just to show that he had once defeated the 5 Lakes and 4 Seas. As expected, he was the shameless leader of the Chuanjin sect. Team Raging Desolation. Wuji pointed at another team and said, this team has always been number 2, second only to 9 states. Moreover, they have been number 2 for 5 consecutive years. Their fighting spirit is very high. If you meet them in the early stages, you will definitely be at a disadvantage. You trash will definitely have 0 chance of winning. All right. Everyone saw that Wuji was about to mock them again and forcefully interrupted. Can you stop bullshitting and just say it? Who do we have a higher chance of winning against? Well, Wuji pointed at Sky Dragon team and Underworld team in the middle and said, in contrast, we still have a higher chance of winning against Song Xian's team and Underworld team. After all, we are old rivals with Song Xian, and we are more familiar with Underworld team. I have an idea. At this time, Mingdu suddenly raised his hand. Wuji nodded, say it. Mingdu said, tomorrow, we will directly challenge one of these 2 teams, and we should be able to get into the top 4. At that time, even if we stop in the top 4, we can still make enough money. Indeed, Chuanjin was just a team of amateurs. It was already a great achievement for them to be able to squeeze into the top 4 of the national competition in their first time. No. Wuji waved his finger and said, each team only has 1 chance to challenge. It's a pity to use it in tomorrow's competition. Our goal should be the champion. Champion? Mingdu asked. If we don't use this opportunity tomorrow, what if we meet 9 states team? I'm afraid we can't even get into the top 4. Don't worry. Wuji smiled and said, the competition has always been the survival of the fittest. What you can think of, others can certainly think of. Chapter 1249. In the Pro League, it was always the case that the remaining teams were stronger the further it went. Matches between experts were always the most exciting. Although there were a lot of Skyfire's fans in the quarterfinals, the audience that remained were all experts that knew the ropes. Their behavior was also much more refined. The 8 teams entered the arena 1 by 1 under the host's invitation. Looking at the empty seats next to them, everyone had a lot of feelings. A few days ago, there were 50 teams here. After a few days of competition, there were only 8 teams left. It was a competition, and it was just that cruel. There had to be a winner. After everyone took their seats, the atmosphere in the arena was stirred up by the host. Next up was the selection of teams. As it turned out, Wuji was a very far-sighted leader. Sure enough, the lights had just dimmed and the selection hadn't even begun. Suddenly, a voice called out, "We choose to challenge the motley crew." Whoosh! Hearing this voice, everyone's eyes were drawn to it. The cameraman also turned the camera to give the person who shouted a close-up. The one who shouted was none other than the captain of Netherworld King, Grim Reaper's left hand. Wow! The crowd was in an uproar. What the hell was going on? Why was this motley crew being challenged again? Didn't everyone challenge 9 states before? Did they all think that the motley crew was the only opponent they could challenge? Thinking of this, everyone couldn't help but look at Wang Yu and the others who were being challenged. Seeing this group of amateurs, everyone couldn't help but shake their heads. Could these guys be stronger than 9 states? That wasn't realistic. Hearing Grim Reaper's left hand challenge his team to place one's pride called out in dissatisfaction. Hey, this kid is really petty. Don't tell me he's holding a grudge against Uncle Neo. Hearing this, everyone laughed. Don't be afraid of thieves stealing, but be afraid of thieves remembering. Old cow, you need to be careful. TCH, Wang Yu said indifferently. He's looking to die, still as domineering as ever. Of the 8 teams present, with the exception of Heavenly Dragon and Netherworld King, the rest were all well-known veteran teams. There were also the opponents that Xuanjin hoped to avoid. Being defeated by Netherworld King or Heavenly Dragon was exactly what Xuanjin wanted. Since his opponent was serious, how could he not fight? Wang Yu casually tapped on the option to accept the challenge and said indifferently, I accept the challenge. Seeing that Wang Yu was about to accept the challenge, the host said excitedly, the motley crew is about to fight again. Will there be a miracle like yesterday? Let's wait and see. Now, let's invite the 2 teams into the arena. The 2 teams got up and walked toward the arena. At this moment, Rapid Thundersword came to Bao San's side and said, don't take any chances. Your opponent this time is different from yesterday. I hope they can teach you a lesson in the arena. You're still far from it. Bao San flew into a rage when he heard this. He glared and was about to make a move. Wu Ji and the others immediately held Bao San down and said, Are you crazy? This is a competition. This brat is deliberately provoking us. If we hit him, we're dead for sure. Hee. Hearing Wu Ji's words, Rapid Lightning Sword chuckled and returned to the team. Wang Yu rubbed his chin as he watched Rapid Lightning Sword leave. This kid is a bit cheap. He's quite cheap, the others nodded. If Bao San had made a move just now, the result of the match would already be out. When Chun Xiang provoked others, he would at most win 1 match. This guy's provocation almost caused the motley crew to be wiped out. It could be seen that this kid's shamelessness was above Chun Xiang's. Wang Yu shook his head and said, with such a cheap teammate, I'm afraid that Underworld King's tactical weakness will be made up for. It's okay. Everyone said in unison, our Wu Ji is much more cheap than him. Wu Ji, this group of bastards, there's no difference between praising and cursing. As the later opponents were getting stronger and stronger, Mu Zixian, the 12th member of the motley crew, was replaced by evildoers Run Wild. After everyone entered the gaming cabin, they arrived at the arena. According to the rules, the challenger had the priority to choose the map. The map that Death's Left Hand chose for the first match was called Despair Forest. Despair Forest was a setting with a primeval forest as the background. In the background story, Despair Forest was the largest forest in the reincarnated mainland. Anyone who entered this forest would feel despair because they couldn't find a way out. Of course, as a competition setting, this forest couldn't be copied from the original game, but it was still a large map. Seeing the dense forest on the map, Wang Yu started to sweat. Everyone knew that Elder Neo wasn't afraid of anything except getting lost in the forest. Death's Left Hand's choice of map was really vicious. Of course, only the insiders of the Quan Jin sect knew that Wang Yu was afraid of the forest. The reason why he chose this map was because the ground of this map was covered with thick leaves. The assassin's stealth skills were basically useless in this map. Therefore, this was a map for archers. It seemed that Death's Left Hand was quite confident in his archery skills. For the quarterfinals, the platform teams had to go all out. There was no need to hide their strength, so the first match was still led by Death's Left Hand. As for the motley crew, they naturally brought out their trump card. Unwillingly, Wang Yu was transported to the arena. Under the cover of the leaves, the dark primeval forest always made people feel depressed. After entering the arena, Wang Yu didn't say anything. He pushed his arms up and used Double Dragon Burst toward the sky. In any case, Wang Yu wouldn't run around in the forest. Since the battle was unavoidable, he might as well expose himself and let his opponent find him. The higher the level of the skill, the more beautiful the effect. Double Dragon Burst was a Qigong master's ultimate skill. Its effect wasn't inferior to a mage's AoE magic. A red and a blue dragon flew into the sky and exploded like fireworks. Despair Forest was originally dark, so the light from the explosion was very obvious. As expected, the Grim Reaper's left hand's attention was drawn to the fireworks in the sky. He quickly confirmed Wang Yu's coordinates and walked over unhurriedly. Seeing that Death's left hand was really lured over by Wang Yu, Rapid Lightning Sword's face crumbled. This idiot! Didn't I tell him that the target would take the initiative to find him? Why is he being lured over by someone else? Is his intelligence used to act cute? Isn't he afraid of being ambushed? As he cursed, Rapid Lightning Sword's gaze fell on Wang Yu. But at this moment, something happened that made Rapid Lightning Sword dumbfounded. After Wang Yu used Double Dragon Burst, he didn't immediately go to ambush. Instead, he sat on the ground and picked up a tree branch to poke at the leaves on the ground. This Rapid Lightning Sword was stunned. What kind of strategy is this? Chapter 1250. Seeing that the Grim Reaper's left hand was getting closer and closer to Wang Yu, but Wang Yu still didn't move. The Swift Thunder Sword could see that these two guys on the field were jackals of the same tribe. There was no strategy to speak of. Such a match was really tragic. A minute later, Wang Yu appeared in the Grim Reaper's left hand's field of vision. Archers had super long-range vision that other professions didn't have. Especially in such a dark environment, the vision of other professions would be limited. Only the archer's vision wouldn't be reduced. Therefore, although the Grim Reaper's left hand could see Wang Yu couldn't see the figure of the Grim Reaper's left hand. The Grim Reaper's left hand was an archer who put all his points into strength. His shooting range was much further than ordinary archers, even beyond the field of vision. Seeing Wang Yu squatting on the ground in the distance, the Grim Reaper's left hand took his giant bow from his back and took out a thick arrow from the quiver. He took a deep breath, held his breath, pulled the bow, and shot. The Grim Reaper's left hand's movements were coherent and smooth. Bang! With an explosive sound, the thick arrow whistled through the air and flew toward Wang Yu. Wang Yu was a martial artist, so his senses were stronger than ordinary people. Although the Grim Reaper's left hand was far away from Wang Yu, and Wang Yu couldn't feel the murderous intent, the Forest of Despair was very quiet. Wang Yu could easily hear the sound of nearly 100 meters away, especially the Grim Reaper's left hand's unusually loud arrow in Wang Yu's ears. There was no concealment to speak of. It's coming. Hearing the explosive sound, Wang Yu suddenly raised his head. At the same time, the arrow flew not far from Wang Yu's face. In a flash, Wang Yu slightly leaned to the side, and the Grim Reaper's left hand's arrow brushed past Wang Yu's head and shot into the tree behind Wang Yu. Through, with a loud bang, the tree behind Wang Yu, which was as thick as the mouth of a bowl, was pierced through by an arrow. The entire tree shook slightly from the impact, and its leaves rustled down. Hiss! The audience gasped when they saw the arrow. How was that an arrow? It was a cannonball. Even Wang Yu couldn't help but frown. Meow. If this arrow were to hit a person, even without using any skills, it would probably take away half of their HP. After all, even warriors didn't put all their points into strength. Humans were dangerous creatures when their thinking was extreme. Seeing that Wang Yu had dodged his arrow, the Grim Reaper's left hand froze in place. Disregarding everything else, Death God's left hand had absolute confidence in his archery skills. Without vision, Death God's left hand could only rely on his instincts to force Starfire to dodge. His archery skills were extraordinary. After playing the game for so long, this was the first time Grim Reaper's left hand had seen someone dodge his arrows without using any skills. While he was distracted, Wang Yu had already determined the direction of the Grim Reaper's left hand. He got up and ran toward the left hand of the Grim Reaper. The Grim Reaper's left hand did not say anything. He just drew his bow and knocked an arrow. Kill! Bang! The second arrow instantly arrived in front of Wang Yu with the glow of skill. Wang Yu slightly leaned to the side and dodged the arrow. Dong! The arrow pierced a big hole in the tree behind Wang Yu and then deeply inserted into the ground. The effect of the violent archer's skill was simply terrifying. Not bad. The second arrow missed. A trace of sweat appeared on the forehead of the Grim Reaper's left hand. He casually took out 3 arrows and put them on the bowstring. Aim and release. Bang! 3 thick arrows flew out. They lined up and shot toward the front of Wang Yu's chest, sealing the direction in which Wang Yu could dodge. Swoosh! However, just when the arrow was about to hit Wang Yu's figure flashed, and he dodged the arrow like lightning. Damn! This time, the Grim Reaper's left hand finally panicked. As we all know, archery is a highly technical job with high psychological requirements. The Grim Reaper's left hand was in free mode. His archery was not like others who could shoot no matter how they shot. Once his heart was in chaos, he would lose his confidence. Without confidence, he would lose his accuracy. The 4th time he drew the bow, the arrow had not yet been aimed. Wang Yu had already rushed to the front of the Grim Reaper's left hand. He reached out and grabbed the Grim Reaper's left hand's giant bow. Immediately afterward, Wang Yu jerked back, trying to take the weapon from the Grim Reaper's left hand. Unexpectedly, the Grim Reaper's left hand did not move at all. Before Wang Yu could retract his strength and let go, the Grim Reaper's left hand had already recovered. He jerked the giant bow back, and Wang Yu was directly pulled up. Motherf asterisk her, full power archer. Wang Yu cursed and quickly landed in the air with an eagle step. At this time, the Grim Reaper's left hand had also jumped back to open a distance from Wang Yu. Draw the bow and shoot. The thick arrow shot head-on at Wang Yu. It was too late for Wang Yu to dodge at this time. He raised his left hand, and a shield appeared in his hand. Duong! With a loud noise, Wang Yu was shot back a few meters, and the web between his thumb and forefinger was slightly numb from the shock. Damn you! Don't be so perverted. Wang Yu shook the numb web between his thumb and forefinger and jumped in front of the Grim Reaper's left hand. At this time, the Grim Reaper's left hand was completely scared. Damn, the Grim Reaper's left hand was a real shot. The number of times he missed the target within 100 meters could be counted with one hand, but today, it was blocked by the opponent's face. Wang Yu was only shocked by the power of the Grim Reaper's left hand's arrow, but the Grim Reaper's left hand's worldview was shattered by Wang Yu. The archer profession was not good at close combat. Even if the Grim Reaper's left hand was full of brute force, it was still useless in front of a fighting master like Wang Yu. Not to mention that the kid was completely stupid. Wang Yu rushed in front of the Grim Reaper's left hand. In order to prevent the kid from shooting again, he stepped on his knee to make him unsteady. At the same time, he used the Rising Dragon Fist to hit the chin of the Grim Reaper's left hand from the bottom up. The Grim Reaper's left hand was sent out of the field with a punch. The Grim Reaper's left hand, who fell out of the field, still maintained a stunned expression. At this moment, the system prompt appeared. Motley Team Iron Ox wins. That's it. The spectators in the arena wanted to see more. Amateurs were just here to watch the show. In the eyes of the spectators, it was nothing more than Wang Yu dodging a few arrows and then closing in on the Grim Reaper's left fist to end his opponent. As for how dangerous it was, only the 2 people in the arena knew. Seeing that the Grim Reaper's left hand was knocked out of the field before he could shoot his opponent, Rapid Thundersword said with some dissatisfaction, "Left hand, your random archery makes me suspect that you deliberately went easy on him." What do you know? The Grim Reaper's left hand looked at Rapid Thundersword with dissatisfaction and retorted, "If you go up, you probably won't even last one round." TSK. Rapid Thunder Sword disdainfully curled his lips. Winning and losing are common in the military. If you lose, you lose. Why do you have to boost the morale of others and diminish your own prestige? Oomph. The Grim Reaper's left hand snorted and turned his head, ignoring Rapid Thundersword. Chapter 12:51. For the next 2 rounds, evildoers run wild, and Yang Na went up one after another. There is no need to mention the result. Although Yang Na was a woman, her martial arts made it extremely difficult for even a professional player to defeat her in this map. This monstrous genius was even stronger than Yang Na. Not only that, but he was also cruel and ruthless. His attacks were even fiercer than Wang Yu's. Such a fierce person was naturally not someone that these fellows from the Netherworld King realm could deal with. In just a few minutes, the two players from Underworld were knocked out of the ring. The fourth round was originally planned for North Sea Fish or to place one's pride to come up, but Despair Forest was a map that countered assassins. To place one's pride also had a poor sense of direction. This brat had even asked Wang Yu to lead the way, but in the end, both of them had lost their way. These pitiful grandmasters of combat from the Chuanjin sect. The word despair in the Forest of Despair was definitely named after the two of them. Therefore, Mingdu volunteered to go up for the fourth round, and Mingdu went up. The fourth player from Underworld was the vice captain of Underworld, Death's right hand. Death's right hand was the chief warrior of Underworld, and also one of the top 4 experts in Underworld. Previously, Chuanjin had fought with this kid. He was quite strong, and even after being ambushed by Bao San, he still didn't die. It could be seen that his equipment was also top-notch. As for Mingdu, everyone knew that as the chief canon mage of Chuanjin, Mingdu's damage was even higher than Wang Yu's. In terms of personality, Mingdu was a combination of Wuji's Chun Xiang and Bao San's shamelessness, wretchedness, and savagery. He was once rated as the most dangerous person in Chuanjin by Yu Huicheng. The last time Death's right hand died was at the hands of Mingdu. Moreover, Mingdu was an expert at stirring up trouble, and his combat experience was extremely rich. After entering the arena, Mingdu raised his staff and flew up a tree. Compared to the ground, the trees were much more secretive. Using a map as large as the Forest of Despair to fight one-on-one was a bit of a scam. If it was really a game of hide and seek, the vision of the two professions was quite average. They might not even be able to find each other's shadows within 30 minutes. Mingdu, on the other hand, did not think that he would get lucky. The first thing he did after climbing up the tree was to shout, "You who lost to me, I'm here. If you want revenge, come at me." Although the Forest of Despair was huge, it was very quiet. Mingdu's shout passed through the forest and reached Death's right hand's ears. Originally, mages countered warriors. In this map, the Grim Reaper's right hand could ignore Mingdu's provocation. But the Netherworld King realm had already lost 3 matches in a row and was in urgent need of a win. Mingdu had once killed the Death God's right hand. Thus, the Death God's right hand had a deep hatred towards this boy. Thus, after hearing the shout, the Grim Reaper's right hand followed the voice. F***CK, F***CK, F***CK. At this time, Swift Thundersword's mood was absolutely horrendous. He knew that these fellows from the Netherworld King realm didn't use their brains when they fought, but he didn't think that they would be so stupid. If they brazenly rushed forwards like this, wouldn't that just be sending themselves to their deaths? Especially after seeing the Grim Reaper's right hand's expression, Rapid Thundersword even had the heart to die. Just how did such a team make it into the top 8 of the Pro League 3 years in a row? Not long after, the Grim Reaper's right hand arrived at Mingdu's hiding spot under everyone's watchful eyes. The Grim Reaper's right hand did not even make a turn on the road. "Hey, you really are as retarded as the legends say." Mingdu snickered. He formed a lightning seal with one hand and raised his staff with the other, chanting, "Violent Thunder." Boom! A strengthened version of Violent Thunder descended from the sky, smashing towards the Grim Reaper's right hand. The Violent Thunder buffed by the Grim Reaper's right hand had double the damage. Even if the Grim Reaper's right hand was a shield warrior, he would still lose half his HP. But at this moment, the Grim Reaper's right hand's ear twitched slightly and it suddenly charged forward. Boom! Mingdu's Violent Thunder landed on the ground, and the Grim Reaper's right hand dodged the attack. Then, the Grim Reaper's right hand turned around and swung its sword diagonally upwards, using a battle energy slash. Shwa! A crescent moon flew towards Mingdu. Not bad. Just like the Grim Reaper's left hand, he could discern the location of the enemy by listening. Just now, when he heard Mingdu's chant, he was able to determine Mingdu's approximate location. At this moment, Mingdu was standing on a tree branch. Compared to the ground, it was very inconvenient for him to move. In a moment of desperation, Mingdu's figure flashed and appeared on another tree. At this moment, the Grim Reaper's right hand swung another battle energy slash at him. "Hit yourself," Mingdu sneered and aimed his staff at the Grim Reaper's right hand. With a flash of white light, the Grim Reaper's right hand was swapped to the tree. Bang! The battle energy slash collided with the Grim Reaper's right hand. The Grim Reaper's right hand trembled slightly, and its HP dropped by 1/10. As for the Grim Reaper's right hand, it didn't seem to feel anything. With both hands holding the weapon, it jumped down and used the collapsing mountain slash. Boom! The Grim Reaper's right hand instantly landed on the ground, and the ground within a radius of 500 meters was smashed up. As one of the warrior's ultimate skills, the collapsing mountain slash was a skill with a large range. Mingdu's 2 movement skills had already been used. Naturally, the assassin couldn't dodge and was directly turned into a white light. Gotcha! Just when the Grim Reaper's right hand thought that he had one, suddenly, a strange sound rang in the Grim Reaper's right hand's ear. The Grim Reaper's right hand suddenly felt its body sink and was sucked in by a spinning ball of light. At the same time, the dark clouds above the Grim Reaper's right hand's head finished gathering. A line of words lit up above the dark clouds. Awaken, thunderstorm. Boom, 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 boom. The Grim Reaper's right hand looked up. It was already too late to dodge, and in despair, it was swallowed by the lightning. System notification. Draw 1 point for each player. This was Mingdu, a guy full of the aura of a bandit. He would rather die than suffer a loss. This was his life motto. Even his fighting style was the same. Even if he was killed, he would drag someone else down with him. Clearly, as an amateur player, replacing a famous expert from the Underworld Kingdom, this exchange of a life for a life was not a loss at all. Seeing the Grim Reaper's right hand follow him down the stage, Mingdu gave the Grim Reaper's right hand the middle finger. F***CK. The Grim Reaper's right hand clenched his fist. Rapid Lightning Sword came up and lectured, "What's the difference between your fighting style and giving your life away? Blah, blah, blah. PK relies on a brain." Yeah. The others from the Underworld Kingdom echoed. "What is it?" The Rapid Lightning Sword group mocked. "You speak as if you have a brain." Everyone, the Grim Reaper's right hand said unhappily, "Kid, don't just talk and don't do anything. You go next." Rapid Lightning Sword said, "I'll go. Then I'll go. There's nothing we can't do. Later, I'll show you what tactics are." With such a large map and not using the terrain, what are you guys thinking? Chapter 1252. At the same time, on Xuanzhen's side, Chun Xiang poked to place one's pride when he saw the Blitz sword jumping up and down. "I'll bet 100 gold coins that the next round will be that Blitz sword." F***CK off. To place one's pride rolled his eyes. "Gambling is illegal. I'll report you." Who's betting? Who's betting? Seeing that to place one's pride had learned his lesson, Chun Xiang began to look for his next prey. Hearing Chun Xiang's words, Bao San rubbed his chin and volunteered, "Let me go next." "No." Wuji shook his head. "This map is too big. It's not suitable for you. The bigger the map, the more the terrain could be used. Not to mention that Blitzord was a pro player. He wouldn't be too weak. Even if he really wasn't as good as Bao San, with Bao San's personality, he would definitely be at a disadvantage in this map. In this kind of terrain, whoever wasn't calm would have a lower chance of winning. Bao San and Blitz Sword could be considered as a blood feud. How could Bao San be calm when facing this guy? As for being calm, Wuji thought for a moment. "Brother Chun, I'll leave this round to you." Chun Xiang snapped his fingers. "No problem." Having an old man at home was like having a treasure. Although Chun Xiang was a wretched person, as the oldest member of Xuanzhen, he had always been the most dependable safeguard for Xuanzhen. Before Wang Yu came, Chun Xiang did all the dirty work. If Bao San was bullied, then Xuanzhen would be bullied. Bao San's enemy would be Xuanzhen's enemy, and Bao San's girlfriend would be his girlfriend. Since that was the case, Chun Xiang naturally had the duty and responsibility to help Bao San vent his anger. With a flash of light, Chun Xiang and Blitz Sword were simultaneously teleported to the arena. It's that old thief again. Seeing Chun Xiang's expression, the audience and all the pro players revealed a surprised expression. Warlocks were in a duel class. There was only one person who dared to appear in a duel and left a deep impression on everyone. After Chun Xiang entered the battlefield, he did not summon his 10 evil spirit minions. This was because Chun Xiang's summoning skill had been greatly weakened in the arena. The evil spirits could only exist for 1 minute. There was no helping it. After all, there was a fundamental difference in the size of the map and the environment of the game. A single person carrying the skills of an entire army would affect the balance of the competition. After entering the battlefield, Chun Xiang did not stay where he was. Instead, he walked straight ahead. Just as Chun Xiang reached the center of the map, he suddenly stopped in his tracks and stood still. Seeing this scene, all the audience was stunned. The audience had an omniscient view, so they could see the vision and coordinates of the players on both sides. This was a reference to the LOL vision range. Everyone understood. When Chun Xiang ordered his evil spirits to gather their formation, the distance between the rapid lightning sword and Chun Xiang's vision was less than 1 meter. Chun Xiang would never be able to see a target outside of his field of vision. There was only one explanation as to why Chun Xiang was able to stop moving at this moment. Chun Xiang had calculated the coordinates of the blade light sword based on its movement speed. This kind of problem wasn't difficult. Even elementary school students knew that time x speed equals distance. The key was that the two players were on the battlefield and moving. The forest map didn't even have coordinates, so it was impossible to know where they were. In this situation, to be able to calculate the opponent's position, this kind of calculation ability was truly terrifying. While everyone was in shock, the rapid lightning sword and Chun Xiang also saw each other. Chun Xiang smiled slightly. He summoned a cloud of poison mist and threw it at the rapid lightning sword. Unfortunately, the trajectory of the warlock's poison skill was too slow. The rapid lightning sword leaned to the side, dodging Chun Xiang's skill. He immediately lowered his head and charged at Chun Xiang. In the blink of an eye, he had arrived in front of Chun Xiang. Bah! Seeing the rapid lightning sword's fighting style, everyone from Underworld rolled their eyes. Fuck! In the end, wasn't this grandson also charging forward like everyone else? What qualifications did he have to look down on others? Of course, what these honest fellows from the Underworld King's realm had overlooked was that Chun Xiang was a warlock and Rapid Thunder Sword was a warrior. A warrior's fighting style was to fight force with force. When the Rapid Lightning Sword said not to charge forward, he meant not to blindly charge forward and let the opponent attack first. Now that the two of them had met in this way, they naturally had to attack first. Otherwise, a warrior kiting a warlock? Wasn't that just asking for trouble? The reason why Wuji didn't let Bao San go was because he knew this point. Originally, as a newcomer, the Rapid Lightning Sword had been ostracized in the team. However, this kid was an expert strategist specially invited by the boss. It wasn't easy for the Underworld King team to find a sponsor, so of course they would give the Rapid Lightning Sword some face. Therefore, the Rapid Lightning Sword had some prestige in the team at the beginning. Now that Wuji had done this, the Rapid Lightning Sword's remaining prestige was gone. They were all indifferent to life and death and fought as soon as they met. Why did they have to be superior to others? It would be fine if they won the match, but if they were killed, then the words of the Rapid Lightning Sword would be nothing more than farts in the ears of the Underworld King team. Seeing the Rapid Lightning Sword charging at him, Chun Xiang chuckled. He hit the ground with his staff and released Toxic Nova. Swoosh! The circle flew out from Chun Xiang's body and spread 360 degrees. Oomph! The Rapid Lightning Sword snorted and aimed his rapier at Chun Xiang. He turned into a ray of light and stabbed forward. Thunderbolt Stab, the exclusive skill of the Rapid Lightning Swordsman. After locking onto the target, the user would dash forward at an extremely fast speed and deal multiple damage to the target. While dashing, the user could not be attacked. Thunderbolt Stab was a skill that could be used both offensively and defensively. The invincibility effect of dashing could obviously dodge Chun Xiang's toxic nova. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. The rapid lightning sword dashed back and forth like a ray of light and stabbed 4 times in an instant. However, when the rapid lightning sword landed, he realized that Chun Xiang was long gone. Could he be dead? The rapid lightning sword was slightly startled. He looked around in a panic and saw a pool of blood moving away from him. Try to run. Seeing this, the rapid lightning sword raised his sword and followed. However, before he could catch up to the pool of blood, a black circle suddenly appeared under the rapid lightning sword's feet. Dark Realm. The rapid lightning sword was shocked. He immediately used charge to rush out of the range of the Dark Realm and stepped on Chun Xiang's pool of blood. At the same time, Chun Xiang had already transformed into his human form and stood in front of the rapid lightning sword. The rapid lightning sword raised his sword and stabbed forward. Chun Xiang jumped back and dodged the attack. Just when the rapid lightning sword was about to stab Chun Xiang again, his feet sank and he could not move. The rapid lightning sword looked down and saw a patch of thorns burrowing out of the leaves. Have a safe journey. I won't be seeing you off. Chapter 1253. Block him. Under Chun Xiang's command, the evil spirits gathered into a formation, not leaving a single gap for rapid lightning sword to escape. The 10 evil spirits surrounded the blitzkrieg sword tightly. Such a shameless way of fighting was quite difficult for a melee warrior to deal with. Chun Xiang was a despicable person. Seeing that rapid lightning sword was surrounded by his underlings, he did not stop using his skills, reducing movement speed, defense, attack speed, and HP. A bunch of skills landed on rapid lightning sword's head one after another. Although warlocks didn't have any powerful DPS skills, these disgusting debuff skills were like a blunt knife cutting through flesh. The Swift Thunder Sword was in a state where he could neither live nor die. Of course, Chun Xiang also wanted him to die quickly, but rapid lightning sword equipment was not weak, and Chun Xiang's damage output was not high, so he could only lead his underlings to grind him down bit by bit. I'll fight it out with you. Being tortured like this, rapid lightning sword became anxious, and with a loud roar, he turned around and was about to use Whirlwind Slash. Chun Xiang smiled and commanded his underlings to spread out, avoiding rapid lightning sword attack range. Seeing this, rapid lightning sword lowered his head and charged out of the gap between the evil spirits. He then raised his sword and leaped high, using collapsing mountain and splitting earth slash towards Chun Xiang. As if he knew that rapid lightning sword would do this. Just as rapid lightning sword was about to hit Chun Xiang turned into a wisp of smoke and floated away from rapid lightning sword skill. After missing his attack, rapid lightning sword raised his sword and used breaking dragon slash to prevent himself from being targeted by Chun Xiang's evil spirits again. He attempted to use movement to escape. However, after jumping 2 steps, Chun Xiang's dark barrier suddenly rose from the ground and surrounded rapid lightning sword. Duong. Rapid lightning sword could not retract his momentum in time, and as if he had deliberately rammed his head into the dark barrier, he was once again frozen on the spot. Chun Xiang commanded the evil spirits to swarm him and grind him down bit by bit. Seeing rapid lightning sword's HP drop bit by bit, the Chuanjin members could not help but be speechless. TSK. Is Brother Chun trying to toy with that kid to death? How cruel! Third Bao clenched his fists and said excitedly, Brother Chun is such a good brother. Chun Xiang schemed against people. Once he was schemed against, he would be trapped step by step. Under the encirclement of Soaring Spring, the pitiful Swift Thunder Sword went through a series of cycles of being immobilized, being ganged up on, breaking through, immobilized, and then being ganged up on again. Finally, before the evil spirit's summoning duration ended, his HP had reached rock bottom. With a face full of relief, he transformed into a white light and flew off the stage. At the same time, the audience became even more fearful of Chun Xiang, the wretched uncle. Meow, it was better to just die than a fight with this guy. What was karma? Previously, Rapid Lightning Sword had scolded his teammates to his heart's content. Now, the moment he stepped off the stage, the Grim Reaper's right hand came over and sneered, "Brother Thunder, your strategy isn't that great. You were tortured to this extent." Oomph. Swift Thunder Sword knew that no matter what he said, he would be laughed at. He could only retort weakly, "What do you know?" Ha! Seeing All-Mouthy King's swift lightning sword in such a pathetic state, the audience couldn't help but laugh out loud. Those who didn't know better would have thought that the Netherworld King's realm had won the competition. Hee hee. A treacherous smile appeared on Wuji's face as he looked at the Netherworld King's realm group not far away. The first match had ended. The motley crew was leading by a wide margin of 5-1. The audience had already become accustomed to such a result. After all, Chuanjin had fought in so many competitions. Every time they won the first match, their results would be amazing. As for the second match, it all depended on luck. Everyone had already figured out this pattern of Chuanjin. Returning to the resting room, Wuji smiled and said, "Our next match, leave it to fate." Without waiting for Wuji to say anything, everyone answered in unison. "Aya, everyone knows." Although Wuji's tone was a little surprised, his expression showed that it was a matter of course. "Nonsense. Wang Yu said, it's always this big every time. Everyone knows." Hee hee. Wuji laughed mischievously. "That's right. The second match is still up to fate. However, if we meet Rapid Lightning Sword, we must do our best to win." "Oh." Everyone was surprised. "Against him?" "That's right," Wuji said. "Who asked him to be so despicable? If we're brothers, then we'll beat him to death." "No problem, no problem." Everyone looked at Bao San and said, "Even if you don't say it, we won't let him go." In the resting room of the Netherworld King's team, Grim Reaper's left hand and the others were also discussing tactics. Due to the loss of their reputation, Rapid Lightning Sword sat in the corner with a bitter expression and did not join the discussion. Be indifferent to life and death. Fight if you're unconvinced. This had always been the slogan of the Netherworld King's team. Therefore, their tactics could be summed up in 6 words. Don't be afraid, just fight. Rapid Lightning Sword's face was full of despair when he heard this. Grim Reaper's left hand had some EQ. Seeing Rapid Lightning Sword's lifeless expression, he waved his hand and invited, "Old Lightning, express your opinion too." "Me?" Rapid Lightning Sword pointed at himself and said, "Will you listen to my opinion?" "Of course." Everyone said politely, "Our team is the most democratic. You're the master tactician. As long as what you say is right, we'll listen to you." Rapid Lightning Sword had clearly been abroad for too long and did not understand China's courtesy. Hearing everyone's words, he became arrogant again and sat in the middle of everyone. He waved his hand and said, "Your tactics are too trashy. You can't fight like that. We should wait for an opportunity to move, accumulate our strength, and strike first to gain the upper hand." The Netherworld King's team saw that this kid was really not polite, and their faces immediately darkened. How could a team style be changed so easily? Moreover, for these guys to be able to get to where they were today, their character of fighting as soon as they met was already like Chuanjin's wretchedness. It had already become an instinct. Rapid Lightning Sword immediately rejected the worldview that these guys had held for so many years. Even if Rapid Lightning Sword was right, it was inevitable that everyone would feel conflicted. Moreover, Rapid Lightning Sword had just been tortured to death. In the eyes of everyone, he no longer had any prestige. His words were also so blunt. The fact that they didn't press him to the ground and beat him up was already a sign of their temper. The grumpy Grim Reaper's right hand immediately replied, "Our tactics are trash, but we haven't been tortured to death. I'll say it again. If you're a man, you have to fight head-on. What does this have to do with being a man or not?" Rapid Lightning Sword was a little anxious after being insulted by Grim Reaper's right hand. Grim Reaper's right hand coldly said, "What? If you don't like it, let's fight in the game later." Rapid Lightning Sword slammed the table and stood up. "Do you think I'm afraid of you?" Chapter 1254. The 10-minute break was over, and everyone returned to the arena. In the second match, Team Motley Fool would choose the map. The strength of Grim Reaper's left hand was obvious to all. Even Wang Yu felt that this kid was troublesome, which showed how strong he was. Therefore, in order to restrict Grim Reaper's left hand from freely displaying his advantage as a violent archer, Team Motley Fool chose a relatively small map, the arena. The arena was a map that was neither too large nor too small. It had a relatively wide field of view, and it was a relatively balanced map for all classes. It was very suitable for one-on-one duels. As a result, in the second match of the Pro League, the arena had a very high appearance rate. It was a very popular map. As the system randomly selected a white light, Team Motley Fool drew a large lot, and Yang Na was teleported to the arena. The audience could not help but sigh. Now, everyone knew that a ragtag team would be invincible if they had 3 tricks up their sleeves. 1 bull, 2 demons, 3 clear snow. These 3 people had not lost a single match since the start of the competition. Their strength was far beyond everyone's imagination, and they were the main scorers of Team Motley Fool. Now that Team Motley Fool had drawn one of the 3 moves in the first match, everyone could not help but mourn for Team Netherworld. It seemed that this girl was going to win the second match. Seeing that Yang Na was selected, Quan Jun was very excited. They did not expect Team Netherworld's luck to be so low, stepping on a landmine in the first match. Just as everyone was excited, Team Netherworld's player was also selected. It was Team Netherworld's captain, Grim Reaper's left hand. Wow! Seeing Yang Na's opponent, the audience could not help but be excited. Yang Na and Grim Reaper's left hand. One was a melee archer, and the other was a full-strength archer. These two were the most eye-catching archers at the current stage. As for who was stronger and who was weaker, it was something that the audience enjoyed discussing. Now that these two had a chance to face each other, everyone was naturally excited. Seeing Grim Reaper's left hand enter the arena, Wang Yu could not help but frown. This match is not going to be easy. To place one's pride laughed. Uncle Nyo, you must have drunk too much. Our side is Sister Snow's. Go, go, go. Wang Yu pushed to place one's pride to the side and said, children should not interrupt when adults are talking. Watch your match. Wang Yu knew Yang Na's strength very well. Wang Yu had also fought Grim Reaper's left hand before, so Wang Yu still had a say. Hearing Wang Yu's words, Wu Ji was also shocked. It can't be. The Death God's left hand is so strong. Little Yang has the upper hand in terms of mechanics. Wang Yu said calmly, but now it's not just a problem of control, it's also a problem of restraint. That left hand thing is not easy to deal with. Is that so? Everyone was skeptical. They couldn't believe that Yang Na would fail. While everyone was talking, the competition on the field had already begun. Yang Na had also watched Grim Reaper's left hand's matches. His archery skills were amazing. If it was a long-range shootout, there was no one in the entire game who could match him. Therefore, to deal with such a person, one had to make full use of their close combat advantage. As soon as the match began, Yang Na charged straight at Grim Reaper's left hand. Grim Reaper's left hand also knew that Yang Na was very skilled in close combat, but when he saw Yang Na rushing over, Grim Reaper's left hand did not panic. After all, no matter how good his close combat skills were, he was still a bow. He knocked the arrow and took a deep breath. Bang! The Grim Reaper's left hand shot an arrow straight at Yang Na's face. Yang Na dodged forward, dodging the arrow from the Grim Reaper's left hand. She arrived in front of the Grim Reaper's left hand, raised her crossbow, and fired. The Grim Reaper's left hand smiled. He held the bow in his left hand and grabbed a thick arrow from his quiver with his right hand. He then swung the arrow horizontally to the right. Pa! Yang Na's crossbow bolt was knocked away, and the Grim Reaper's left hand's arrow swung towards Yang Na like a lance. Yang Na turned her body and dodged the Grim Reaper's left hand's attack. She lifted the crossbow in her hand and shot an arrow from the bottom to the chin of the Grim Reaper's left hand. Grim Reaper's left hand was still in a stunned state, and it was too late for him to dodge. Thus, he took Yang Na's arrow head-on, pulled back the arrow, and hung it on the bowstring. His hand loosened. Bang! The arrow flew straight to Yang Na's chest. Just as the arrow was about to pierce Yang Na's chest, Yang Na didn't retreat. Instead, she moved forward and rolled on the ground to dodge the arrow. She then cut to the foot of the Grim Reaper's left hand. Then, Yang Na suddenly stood up and took out a crossbow bolt with her other hand and inserted it into the eye of the Grim Reaper's left hand. The most important thing for an archer was vision. As long as the Grim Reaper's left hand's eye was destroyed, they would basically win half the battle. However, the Grim Reaper's left hand wasn't someone who would be trampled on. This kid already knew that Yang Na would have this trick. Just as Yang Na rolled to his foot, the Grim Reaper's left hand quickly raised his hand to protect his eye. Puff! Yang Na's crossbow bolt was inserted into the palm of the Grim Reaper's left hand. The Grim Reaper's left hand stretched out his left hand and grabbed Yang Na along with the arrow. It's over. Seeing that Yang Na was caught by the Grim Reaper's left hand, Wang Yu secretly sighed. Meow, this King archer has infinite strength. Even Wang Yu almost suffered a big loss, let alone Yang Na, an archer without the strength to truss a chicken. Sure enough, after being caught by the Grim Reaper's left hand, Yang Na wanted to break free with her skills, but she found that no matter how hard she struggled, the Grim Reaper's left hand wouldn't budge. For such a vicious woman who wanted to poke his eye with an arrow, the Grim Reaper's left hand certainly wouldn't indulge her. He lifted Yang Na's arm with one hand and swung her around in the air. Then he slammed her to the ground, causing Yang Na to feel dizzy. The concept of one strong man can defeat 10 was vividly reflected in the Grim Reaper's left hand. Through the screen, the audience could feel Yang Na's misery. After throwing Yang Na to the ground, the Grim Reaper's left hand stepped on Yang Na, pinched an arrow, knocked it, and released it in one go. Bang! Yang Na's head was shot by the Grim Reaper's left hand. The arrow penetrated Yang Na's head and deeply inserted into the ground. The slight shaking of the arrow indicated the unparalleled strength of the archer. Seeing this scene, all the audience could not help but feel a chill down their spine. Could this be the legendary destroying a flower with a ruthless hand? Yang Na's HP was not high to begin with. After taking a fatal arrow from the Grim Reaper's left hand, she directly turned into a white light and flew back to Chuanjin's team. CK, I almost fell to my death. After returning to the team, Yang Na was furious. That King archer. I'll remember him. TSK, Tisk. Hearing this, everyone could not help but shake their heads. Being hated by a woman, the Grim Reaper's left hand did not know whether to be happy or sad. Chapter 1255. After Yang Na was knocked out of the arena, Wu Ji took over from the motley bunch. With a flash of white light, Wu Ji was teleported to the arena. As the leader of this group of scum from Chuanjin, Wu Ji's wretched behavior was naturally much more wretched than Yang Na's. After entering the arena, Wu Ji did not say a word. He cast invincibility on himself and rushed towards Grim Reaper's left hand. Awesome. The cleric completing Wu Ji's move left the audience speechless. Grim Reaper's left hand was slightly stunned when he saw Wu Ji pouncing towards him. He drew his bow and shot 3 arrows at Wu Ji. However, Wu Ji had holy light to protect him and was invulnerable. He did not have to dodge his opponent's attacks at all. Grim Reaper's left hand's terrifying arrows hit Wu Ji's body, but Wu Ji only swayed slightly. In a short while, Wu Ji rushed to Grim Reaper's left hand. Grim Reaper's left hand added all his points into strength, so he did not have the agility of other archers. With invincibility activated, Wu Ji could not grab him, nor could he escape. Wu Ji cast red light on himself again and rushed to Grim Reaper's left-hand side. He hugged Grim Reaper's left hand and self-destructed. As a cloth armor class, Wu Ji's health was not high, but it was still much better than an archer's. Moreover, Wu Ji had a piece of equipment that could replace his health with mana. Wu Ji's true health was comparable to a warrior's. Bang! Wu Ji's health bar was almost empty, and Grim Reaper's left hand was blasted out of the arena. Sure enough, the ruthless were afraid of the unreasonable, and the unreasonable were afraid of the reckless. Wu Ji's pure playstyle left Grim Reaper's left hand helpless. The pro players who were watching the battle took out their little notebooks and noted, "Remember, if you encounter this cleric, you must hide far away." Damn, It would be such a shame if he was killed by the cleric's self-destruct. After the Grim Reaper's left hand was blasted out of the arena, he did not even realize how he had died to a cleric. After blowing up the death god's left hand, Wuji cast a few heals on his head to restore his HP to full. At this time, the second member of Team Netherworld was teleported onto the stage. The second contestant from Netherworld King Realm was also a warrior. His ID was Hades. His name was arrogant, and he wasn't weak either. Wuji's pure style had higher requirements. First of all, the opponent could not run faster than you. Otherwise, once the invincibility period ended, your reckoning skill would be easily interrupted. Secondly, it also depended on the cooldown. Invincibility and reckoning couldn't be used while on cooldown. In the end, it also depended on the amount of HP. If the opponent was a warrior with thick skin, it was very likely that he would not be able to kill anyone but himself. Obviously, although warriors weren't agility-type classes, weapon warriors would always add points to agility. Wuji definitely wouldn't be able to run as fast as Hades. In the previous match, Wuji had just used reckoning and invincibility, so they were definitely on cooldown. As for HP, Hades was a warrior and his equipment wasn't weak. Wuji really wasn't sure that he could kill him in one blow. In summary, Wuji didn't have the slightest strength to fight back. The match began. Hades leaned over and rushed in front of Wuji. Wuji raised his staff and threw a skull at Hades' head. At the same time, Hades roared and a skull also appeared on Wuji's head. Both of them were terrified of each other. After the two of them ran around in a circle like headless flies, Hades recovered from his fear and immediately rushed to Wuji's side. Rising Dragon Slash, Knockback. Whirlwind Slash, Strangulation. Collapsing Mountain, second knockup. Rising Dragon Slash. With a set of skills, Wuji was cut into white light. After being knocked out of the arena, Wuji didn't feel depressed because of his failure. After all, as a priest, he had instantly killed the opponent's strongest archer. This wave was already a win. After returning to the team, Wuji went up to Yang Na and said proudly, "Did you see that? I've avenged you." TCH. Everyone expressed their disdain. This was only because the Grim Reaper's left hand was slow. If it was someone else, who knew who would die? Wuji was so shameless that he obviously wouldn't care about others' disdain. He pointed at Hades on the stage and shouted, "Who's going to avenge me?" Following Wuji's call, a beam of light fell on to place one's pride. F*CK. Why me? Amidst the screams of to place one's pride was teleported to the arena. As the saying goes, an inch longer, an inch stronger. Fighters didn't have any advantage against any other classes. Especially the warrior, the king of melee combat. It was the last thing a fighter wanted to face. At this stage, most fighters were sub-tanks. Against an assassin, at least they wouldn't die in one wave. They could still seize the opportunity to counterattack. If they were hit by a fighter's combo, the assassin might not survive with his HP. However, a warrior was different. This annoying class had high attack and defense. Their HP was extremely high. Coupled with their plate armor, the defense was frighteningly high. Even if a fighter purposely stacked their HP, they wouldn't be able to match a warrior's agility and endurance. With a greatsword, a fighter would have a hard time getting close. As the game progressed, the advantage a warrior had over a fighter became more and more obvious. Seeing that his opponent was a fighter, Hades was delighted. He lowered his head and charged. Charge was a warrior's starting skill. It combined movement and control. From this angle, using charge followed by whirlwind slash was the best small combo to deal with a fighter who was jumping around. To place one's pride was not stupid enough to go head-to-head with a warrior. To place one's pride immediately saw through Hades' intention when he saw Hades charging at him. He immediately crouched on the ground. Just as Hades was about to collide with to place one's pride, Hades took the opportunity to push up with his hands. At the same time, he leaned back and kicked Hades' crotch with his back facing the ground. Using the impact of Hades' high-speed movement, Hades was directly thrown out by imbued pride. Bang! Hades landed heavily on the ground. His hands subconsciously covered his crotch. Seeing this scene, the audience could not help but pout. Kicking crotch, that's too cheap. Seeing this, Wang Yu was puzzled. Who taught you this move of rolling backward? Me. Evildoers run wild laughed. You're teaching me such a dirty move. You're about to get beaten up. Wang Yu was furious. To place one's pride was fond of kung fu. It was understandable for others to teach him a few moves. However, Wang Yu only taught kung fu in the proper way. This kind of dirty move. Who would be responsible if something happened? TSK. Evildoers run wild scoffed. It's a game. It won't hurt even if I get kicked. Indeed, there was no sense of pain in the game. Hades, who was kicked in the crotch, quickly got up. He glared at a place one's pride, raised his long sword, and leaped over. Collapsing mountain. Seeing Hades use collapsing mountain, Evildoers Run Wild was excited. Look, it's going to be exciting. When Wang Yu heard this, an ominous premonition arose in his heart. Sure enough, facing Hades, who had jumped over, Jiao rubbed his nose with a smirk on his face. Chapter 1256. Bang! Hades fell from the sky and rode to place one's pride's feet. The audience could not help but groan when they saw this scene. What the F***CK? How much hatred does he have? How can he hit that spot with every move? Even if there is no pain in the game, this is too inhumane. Wang Yu was on the verge of breaking down as he questioned Evildoers Run Wild. How much have you taught him? Not much. To Evildoers Run Wild whispered, I only taught him a few opening moves that are commonly used against other classes. Wang Yu was speechless. There were a total of 14 regular classes in Rebirth. Excluding the Grandmaster of Combat and Grandmaster of Combat, there were 12. Every class had at least 3 opening moves, so 12 by 3 was 36 moves. There were only a few moves and a set of prone punches. Evildoers Run Wild had passed on all the crotch-kicking moves to place one's pride. To place one's pride might as well change its name to crotch-kicking in the future. To place one's pride had used a skill in this kick, and Hades was sent flying. He sprawled on the ground, trembling. There was no sense of pain in the game, so this kid was most likely angry. No one would be able to endure being kicked twice in the crotch. To place one's pride chuckled. He took 2 steps forward and launched a blink chain kick. However, at this time, Hades flipped over and leaned to the side. He grabbed the hilt of his sword with both hands and swung it horizontally. His sword landed squarely between one's pride's legs. To place one's pride was sent flying through the air and fell to the ground. F***CK. The audience was dumbfounded. What the F***CK are these two doing? At this time, Hades fiercely slapped his chest and angrily pointed his middle finger at to place one's pride. Come on, let's hurt each other. As he spoke, Hades swung his sword and slashed at him. F***CK. Damn you. To place one's pride, who was on the ground, spat out a mouthful of saliva. Then he abruptly dashed forward, evaded Hades' attack, rolled behind him, and raised his leg to stomp on the back of Hades' knee. Hades lost his balance and fell to the ground. To place one's pride got up and kicked Hades' crotch from behind. Not to be outdone, Hades did not wait for to place one's pride to retract his leg, and instead turned around to stab to place one's pride's inner thigh. The two idiots were like red-eye brats. They didn't even need to use their skills. They just stood there, kicking each other and swinging their swords. As he fought, he cursed, Mother ***cur. Go on, I'm afraid you're a grandson. Mother ***cur. If you dare to run, you're my grandson. At first, the audience on the stage broke out in a cold sweat from the ferocity of the two. Then they laughed until they cried. Everyone had been watching the competition for so many years, but this was the first time they had seen something so unsightly. Ha! The scum of Chuanjin also laughed until their stomachs hurt. Evildoers Run Wild even commented, as expected of my student. His accuracy and appreciation are much more professional than that kid over there. Wang Yu completely broke down. A good match had turned into a crotch-kicking match. Shameful, shameful. The hearts of everyone from Underworld were now filled with regret. Mother asterisk Kerr, they knew their opponent was shameless and despicable, yet they still challenged him. Weren't they just asking for trouble? Now, their teammates' IQ and moral integrity had been dragged down to the same level by their opponent. If they continued to fight, even if they won, they would become a laughing stock. It might even be a stain on their reputation for life. Fortunately, the system god intervened in time, kicking the two idiots out of the arena in the name of polluting the audio and visual. Only then did everyone breathe a sigh of relief, and this strange match finally came to an end. The two idiots were clearly fighting each other. After being kicked out of the arena, they still stuck out their middle fingers and spat at each other. It wasn't until the system gave each of them a yellow card that the two calmed down. Chun Xiang was still laughing at the side. To be honest, little chick, they don't have a substitute. You should learn from Wuji's Muslim style and drag him out of the arena. That's right. The others also echoed. Even if you want to embarrass yourself, you need to have results first, little friend. F***CK. Wang Yu was speechless and choked. God knows what these bastards were thinking every day. They could still come up with such a stupid idea in this situation. To place one's pride. When this kid learns it, they probably won't be able to keep him. On Underworld's side, everyone looked at the angry Hades and kept shaking their heads. At this point, no one dared to say anything more. They could only lament his misfortune and be angry at his incompetence. When faced with a hooligan who would fight you with all his might, who dared to say that they could resist, not giving him a taste of his own medicine, the experts from the major professional teams in the audience took out their little notebooks again. F***CK. Good shoes don't step on smelly dog shit. After some noise, the atmosphere in the arena finally calmed down. The competition continued. After a flash, the lights shone on Bao San and Rapid Thundersword. Wow, is the system doing this on purpose? Seeing the two chosen, the Chuanjian people clenched their fists in excitement. Evildoers Run Wild smiled. Saner, if you can't win, learn from Chick. It's good to leave a shadow in his heart. Pot. Before Evildoers Run Wild could finish his words, he was slapped to the ground by Wang Yu. This guy was really a monster. The people from Chuanjian were already wretched enough. If they were taught by this kid, who knew what they would become in the future. Seeing Bao Sin enter the arena, Grim Reaper's left hand also reminded Rapid Thundersword, Old Thunder, don't learn from silly Husky. Don't worry, Rapid Thundersword said. I'm not a brainless person. Who the F***CK are you calling brainless? Hades was furious and reached out to grab Rapid Thundersword. At the same time, a white light flashed, and Rapid Thundersword was teleported to the arena. As the saying goes, when enemies meet, their eyes turn red. When enemies meet on a narrow path, the brave one wins. The hatred between Bao San and Rapid Thundersword was deep. Before the competition began, everyone could smell the thick smell of gunpowder. Looking at the two confronting each other, Chun Xiang's wretchedness returned. He nudged to place one's pride beside him and asked, Do you think Bao San can beat that kid? Yes. To place one's pride replied without thinking. Hee. Chun Xiang said, I bet he can't beat him. Do you want to bet? Hearing Chun Xiang's words, Ming Du and the others said, Wow, Dog Chun, you're so cunning. You don't trust Bao San. Why? Do you guys want to bet? I'll bet 1 gold coin on Rapid Thundersword. I'll bet 2. Before the competition began, a bunch of scums were already seeking comfort for themselves. What about you, Wuji? Chun Xiang turned around and asked with a smile. Wuji took out 2 pieces of paper and said, I bet he can beat him. Chun Xiang looked at the 2 pieces of paper in Wuji's hand. One said he could beat him, and the other said he couldn't. How many gold coins? It's boring to bet on gold coins. Wuji raised his eyebrows at to place one's pride and said, Whoever loses will be kicked twice by to place one's pride. As for where to kick, Come, place your bet. Chapter 12:57. In the end, they were just a bunch of shameless people who dared to bet on anything. Bao Sin didn't know that his victory would directly affect the lower half of his teammates. Rapid Lightning Sword was a person who advocated strategy. However, this kid had chosen a warrior class, and the second match was a wide map. Under these circumstances, the use of strategy was much more restricted, so the battle would still be a head-on clash. Because of this, Rapid Lightning Sword, who was eager to prove himself in front of his teammates, was a little impatient. As for the opponent in front of him, Rapid Lightning Sword didn't care at all. In his eyes, there were only 3 worthy opponents in this motley crew. As for the others, they were all amateurs. Rapid Lightning Sword was a hidden branch of the warrior class, Rapid Blade Master. He used a one-handed rapier, and his fighting style was based on speed. Bao San was a traditional warrior. His moves were always wide open and focused on breaking technique with brute force. Each had their own merits. In terms of equipment, other than the sword of the heavenly god, Bao San couldn't compare to Rapid Lightning Sword in any other aspect. As soon as the match began, Rapid Lightning Sword's 2 fingers on his left hand brushed across the blade. Immediately after, Rapid Lightning Sword's body emitted a blue light, and he rushed towards Bao San at an extremely fast speed. Shadow Thunder. This was the unique skill of the Rapid Blade Master. It could greatly increase movement speed for a short period of time. The essence of a battle between experts was to attack first and then use skills. As the name implied, you could attack first and gain the upper hand. However, active attack skills couldn't be casually used. This was because after a skill was used, there would be a moment of stun. If the opponent took advantage of this gap, it would be very disadvantageous for them. Even if the opponent couldn't take advantage of this opportunity, a skill would be on cooldown for a short period of time. Therefore, being able to trick the opponent into using skills first was a necessary skill for an expert. Otherwise, after playing for so long in the Pro League, there weren't many who dared to use skills. Moreover, they would only use skills after taking advantage of the opponent's weakness. Rapid Lightning Sword didn't use an active attack skill like Charge. Naturally, Bao San wouldn't use a skill first. Seeing Rapid Lightning Sword rush over, Bao San gripped the hilt of his sword and prepared to attack. Who knew that when the Thunderbolt sword was not far away from Bao San, it suddenly stopped. The western sword in its hand stabbed diagonally into the ground, and then casually flicked upwards. Rapid Lightning Justice. Oh, the sword light flashed, and a deep crack appeared on the ground between the two of them. At the same time, a clump of soil flew toward Bao San's eyes. In terms of strength, branch classes weren't necessarily much stronger than regular classes. The main reason why branch classes had an advantage against regular classes was that only the player knew the skills of the branch classes, while everyone else was very familiar with the skills of the regular classes. Know yourself and know your enemy, and you will never be defeated. If you know nothing about your opponent's methods, it will be easy to fall into their trap. For example, Bao San did not expect the Rapid Thunder Sword. Seeing the Rapid Thunder Sword throwing mud at his face, Bao San was shocked. He hurriedly waved his sword to protect his eyes and jumped back. Thunderbolt thrust. At this moment, Sun Lei smiled and raised his sword. He turned into a ray of light and charged at Bao San with lightning. Puchi. The Blitz sword came too suddenly. Bao San dodged and was stabbed in the chest by his opponent. Immediately after, a bolt of lightning flashed. Bao San's body twitched, and he was paralyzed. Taking advantage of the fact that Bao San couldn't move, the Blitz sword grabbed the hilt of his sword with both hands and swung upwards. Rising Dragon. Bao San was directly hit into the air. Justice Rush. The Blitz sword turned into a ray of light and dashed back and forth on Bao San's body. Bao San's health bar instantly dropped to below 30%. Bang! The Blitz sword's final attack sent Bao San flying. Before Bao San landed, the Blitz sword pointed downwards and used collapsing mountain slash at Bao San, who was in midair. Air strike. The audience was excited. As expected of an expert, the battle was exciting. The so-called air pursuit attack was to send the opponent flying and then pursue the opponent in midair while the opponent had no strength to fight back. This kind of maneuver was very easy to pull off in a normal MMORPG, but Rebirth was a holographic MMORPG. In this mode, before the skill's stun ended, the opponent would have already fallen to the ground. If one wanted to perform an aerial attack, One would need to be very skilled and try to shorten the skill stun time. In the blink of an eye, the blitz sword flew above Bao San and then ruthlessly fell down. Bao San was about to be sucked away by the blitz sword. Suddenly, Bao San hugged the sword with both hands and turned into a ray of light that crashed into the blitz sword. Bang! 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 3 muffled sounds rang out. Bao San attacked back and forth 3 times, causing the blitz sword to lose its balance in midair. The collapsing mountain slash was also interrupted. This is impossible. How can he know my justice rush? Seeing Bao San use this move, the blitz sword was dumbfounded. Little did he know that Bao San's move was triple slash. Although it looked similar to the blitz sword's justice rush, it could still be distinguished if one looked closely. Of course, the blitz sword, who was confused by Bao San's sudden attack, didn't have time to look carefully. Plop! The thunderbolt sword fell heavily to the ground. This brat was quite smart. After landing, he immediately rolled backward and dodged from under Bao San. Bao San descended from the sky and slashed downwards. The huge sword smashed into the ground, and a shockwave hit the rapid thunder sword in front of him. Wave slash. Bang! Wave slash was only a low-level skill. In this situation, the damage wasn't high. It only made the blitz sword sway slightly. Then, the blitz sword swung and used battle energy slash at Bao San. Bao San rolled forward and dodged the battle energy slash. He rolled to the feet of the blitz sword. Seeing this, the blitz sword was shocked. He hurriedly jumped back to increase the distance between him and Bao San. Bao San raised his sword and slashed horizontally on the ground. Pah! Before the tip of the blitz sword's foot left the ground, Bao San's sword slashed at his ankle. Bao San was a strength-based warrior. Compared to the blitz sword, his priority was much higher. Moreover, the blitz sword couldn't maintain his balance easily. After being swung by Bao San, the blitz sword felt weightless and fell to the ground like a dog eating mud. Bao San stood up and stepped on the blitz sword's back. The sword in his hand fiercely stabbed into the back of the blitz sword's head. Bao San was in manual mode. Manual mode had a type of damage called critical damage, which ignored defense and dealt a critical hit. Needless to say, the back of the head was a vital point. The blitz sword was an agility-type warrior and naturally didn't have much health. Bao San was like pounding rice. With a heart full of hatred, he fiercely stabbed into the back of the blitz sword's head 3 times. Bang! 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 The blitz sword didn't even make a sound before he was sent out of the arena. Chapter 1258. Ha! Cheap Chun, you deserve this. To place one's pride was so excited that he almost jumped up when he saw Bao San stabbing the thunderbolt sword to death. Xinao had been the Quan Jin sect for so long, but Chun Xiang, this old man, had never lost a bet. Who would have thought that he would lose to Wuji today? Although to place one's pride didn't win Chun Xiang personally, as a law enforcer, to place one's pride was excited. Ming Du and the others were livid. They glared at Chun Xiang and wanted to beat him up. Chun Xiang stretched out his hand helplessly and said, "What can I do? I'm desperate too." Wuji pointed his staff at Chun Xiang and the others and said, "Stand still and don't move. 2 kicks each." Chun Xiang and the others looked at each other and stood in a row helplessly. To place one's pride was eager to try. Ming Du said fiercely, "Chick, I'll remember you. You're threatening me. I'll hit you." Screams sounded and attracted the attention of countless spectators. To place one's pride kicked Chun Xiang and the others in a row. The spectators were speechless. This group of unscrupulous guys was indeed as crazy as the rumors said. Chun Xiang and the other screams rang in Wang Yu's ears. Wang Yu asked Wuji in confusion, "If you lose, will you be kicked 10 times? TSK. Wuji rolled his eyes and said indifferently, "How can I lose?" "You're so confident in Bao San." Wang Yu was stunned. To be honest, even Wang Yu didn't have much hope in Bao San in the last round. "Confidence into my ass." Wuji picked up 2 pieces of paper in disdain and said, "I'm confident in myself." "Yourself?" Wang Yu was confused. Seeing that Wang Yu didn't understand, Wuji unfolded the 2 pieces of paper and asked, What does it say? We can beat them. We can't beat them. Wang Yu read after taking a look. That's it. Wu Ji smiled sinisterly. It doesn't say who can beat who and who can't. Fuck. Speechless, Wang Yu pointed his middle finger at Wu Ji. Sure enough, he was the most shameless person in Chuanjin. After Rapid Lightning Sword's death, Netherworld King's fourth player was called Azura Bloodfiend. His class was also a warrior. Damn, this lousy battle team originally had 4 warriors. Now, with the addition of Rapid Lightning Sword, the warrior's proficiency was close to half. What a bunch of tasteless fellows. The Azura Bloodfiend had also fought against Xuanjin's men before. His strength was indeed not weak. At the very least, he was slightly stronger than the Rapid Thundersword. The people from Netherworld King's world were straightforward. Everyone was simple and violent. As one of the best, Azura Bloodfiend didn't waste any words. Once on the stage, Azura Bloodfiend raised his sword and slashed at Bao San. Bao San quickly raised his sword to block. Dang! The two swords smashed together, creating a deafening sound. This was the legendary head-on clash. What was the most hot-blooded in the game? Of course, it was the warriors fighting with their swords. Azura Bloodfiend's attack was blocked. A kick landed on Bao San's stomach, causing him to stumble. Then he charged at Bao San. Bao San didn't want to be outdone. He quickly steadied himself and lowered his head to charge at Azura Bloodfiend. Dong! The two collided and flew up at the same time. Bao San was in manual mode, so it was easier for him to quick recover in midair. He quickly landed on the ground. The Shura Fiend was still in midair. Bao San took a step forward and used Rising Dragon Slash with both hands. Azura Bloodfiend was sent flying again. Bao San took the opportunity to gather strength and use a powerful skill. But at this time, Azura Bloodfiend suddenly used Collapsing Mountain and Splitting Earth Slash. Boom! Bao San was gathering strength and couldn't dodge in time. He was smashed into the air. After fighting with Rapid Thundersword, Bao San didn't have much health left. Now that he was hit by Azura Bloodfiend's powerful skill, the consequences could be imagined. Before Bao San landed on the ground, his health bar was already empty. He turned into a white light and flew off the stage. Out of all the classes, warrior fights were the least technical. Most of the time, it was a battle of health and attacks. This was also the case for pro fights. If Bao San was at full health and fought Azura Bloodfiend, he might not lose. But Bao San had just fought a battle, so he naturally lost more than he won. This was all within the audience's expectations, so they weren't surprised at all. It was already amazing for an amateur player to beat a pro player off the stage. How could he dream of a 1v2? When Bao San got off the stage, Mingdu came over and asked, "Brother San, how do you feel about killing your adulterer?" Scram! Bao San glared at Mingdu. Mingdu lowered his head and sat to the side, depressed. Mingdu was asking for trouble. If his girlfriend was stolen, defeating his love rival in the game was enough to vent his anger. Wouldn't feelings be worthless? TSK, TSK, TSK. Seeing Bao San like this, Chun Xiang sighed. Young people really can't get over it. Nonsense. Wu Ji rolled his eyes. Are you happy that your wife went to do her hair in the middle of the night? Look at that hat of yours. It makes me want to laugh. B*TCH. I'm going to kill you. Chun Xiang pounced over and wrestled with Wu Ji. At this time, for people from the Ragtag Bunch team had been defeated, while the Underworld team still had 2 people. The 5th person from the Ragtag Bunch team to go up was Yin Lao Air. This was the first time Yin Lao Air had been chosen to go up in a 1v1 match. Seeing so many people watching him, Yin Lao Air was quite excited. Shield warriors lost to tanks. They had always been powerful in PvE, but they were a bit weaker in PvP. After all, if you didn't deal enough damage, you would be at a disadvantage no matter how high your health was. This was especially true in PvP against weapon warriors. Apart from health, defense, agility, and damage, you didn't have any advantages. Yin Lao Air naturally knew his weakness. PvP was always about using one's strength to attack the enemy's weakness. So, as soon as he went up, Yin Lao Air hid at the foot of the wall and waited for Azura Fiend to attack. With Azura Fiend's straightforward temper, he naturally wouldn't just stand there and stare at Lao Air. Seeing that Lao Air was hiding in the corner, he rushed over without saying a word and rammed into him. It seemed that Azura Fiend's ability to become a pro player wasn't completely based on hot-bloodedness. He was still a bit narrow-minded. Lao Air's goal in hiding in the corner was to stop Azura Fiend. If Azura Fiend's head rammed into him, if Lao Air dodged, there would be an opening. If Lao Air didn't dodge, then he would be sent flying by Azura Fiend, which would also reveal an opening. When experts fought, they looked for this opening. With Lao Air's damage, once he revealed an opening, he naturally wouldn't be Azura Fiend's opponent. However, seeing Azura Fiend charge over, Lao Air revealed a strange smile. When Ashura Blood Fiend was not far away from Lao Air stretched out a hand from behind his shield and mocked, "Grandson." Chapter 1259. Although charge had a high priority, taunt was a mandatory skill. No matter how high a skill's priority was, a shield warrior's taunt would have to obediently run over. The Azura Fiend was uncontrollably charged towards Lao Air after receiving Lao Air's taunt. Although the Azura Fiend's direction did not change, the charge skill had been cancelled. The Azura Fiend's original goal had also changed. When the Azura Fiend was in front of Lao Air raised his shield and smashed down. A mosquito coil appeared above the Azura Fiend's head. Stun. Interesting. Seeing Lao Air use taunt to cancel out the Azura Fiend's charge, everyone revealed expressions of surprise. In the eyes of ordinary players, taunt was a skill to pull aggro. It was not very useful in PvP. The reason why experts were experts was because their way of thinking was different from ordinary people. They were able to use their inherent skills in different ways. For example, using taunt to cancel out charge. If not for the fact that taunt was played to perfection, no one would have thought that it could be used in such a way. Even the pro players in the audience felt their eyes light up when they saw Lao Air's move. Shield Bash's stun only lasted 2 seconds. In PvP, the player's equipment could cancel out a portion of the stun. As a result, the Azura Fiend was able to quickly recover and counterattack Lao Air. However, Lao Air calmly moved behind the Azura Fiend. At the same time, he switched his shield to a greatsword. Before the stun effect ended, he sent the Azura Fiend flying into the air. Immediately after, he switched his greatsword to a shield and rushed forward. Bang! Lao Air's shield smashed into the Azura Fiend. Lao Air's reaction and attack speed were both very fast. Everything was done smoothly. The Azura Fiend did not even have time to recover and was plastered to the wall by Lao Air's shield. Another stun symbol appeared above the Azura Fiend's head. This time, it was a damage effect. When the Ashura Blood Fiend landed on the ground, Lao Air did not take the opportunity to attack. Instead, he stomped on the ground. Boom! The Ashura Blood Fiend was once again suspended in the air. Lao Air raised his shield and plastered the Ashura Blood Fiend onto the wall for the second time. At this moment, the fainted effect of Azura Fiend had already worn off. He struggled to use quick recover to land on the ground. However, at this moment, Lao Air lowered his head and charged at the Azura Blood Fiend. Collide had a high priority, and Azura Fiend's skill was forcibly interrupted. Lao Air was knocked into the air once, and calmly raised his shield, pasting Azura Fiend into the wall for the third time. Rising Dragon, Earth Tremor, and Charge. These 3 skills didn't have long cooldowns. With the help of the wall, Lao Air was able to switch between these 3 skills. Sword Slash, Dragon Slash, Shield Raise, Wall Paste. He stomped his feet to shake the ground, hovered in the air, raised his shield, and plastered the wall. Crouching down to collide, hovering in the air, raising his shield, pasting the wall. Azura Fiend was repeatedly plastered onto the wall. Trying to fight back was an extravagant hope. Lao Air's expression was solemn and meticulous. Whether it was the switching between sword and shield, or the release of skills, he made no mistakes like a machine. What kind of fighting style is this? Seeing this scene, everyone was a little dumbfounded. As the saying goes, martial arts all come from the corner of the wall. However, to see Yin Lao raise his shield and slap his opponent into the wall was truly a little terrifying. Everyone could not help but think of a national sport, table tennis. When everyone played table tennis when they were young, they did not have opponents. Didn't they always use the wall to practice? It seemed like this shield warrior on the stage was using his opponent as a table tennis ball. Wasn't that right? Before Yin Lao started playing games, he was a professional table tennis player. Although his skills were only at the provincial level, they were second to none in foreign countries. The Chuanjin team also realized this and could not help but laugh. Second brother has returned to his old profession. In table tennis, Yin Lao was a genuine professional player. His professional level was much higher than playing games. Like Wang Yu, Yin Lao had been practicing such a table tennis style since he was a child. Of course, he would not easily make a mistake. The tragic Azura fiend was hovering in the air, crashing into the wall, and falling to the ground. The cycle repeated. Even though Yin Lao's attack was low, this fighting style caused the Azura fiend's HP to drop rapidly. The audience watched Yin Lao and Yin Lao's Azura fiend as if they were watching someone else bouncing a ball. They kept nodding along with the rhythm. After an unknown amount of time, the Azura fiend's HP finally emptied, and it turned into a white light. Wow! Following the death of the Azura fiend, there was a warm applause in the venue. This round was truly special. The audience was very surprised, as if they were watching a fancy table tennis performance. Yin Lao smiled slightly. He raised his shield in a low-key manner and leaned against the wall again. At the same time, Netherworld King's fifth player was also teleported to the arena. The fifth player was the same as Yin Lao holding a shield. However, the difference was that this person was dressed in white armor. He should be a knight. Since ancient times, knights and warriors were inseparable. These two professions not only looked similar, but their skills were also similar. If a knight held a warrior's weapon, it would be difficult to tell them apart just by looking at their appearance. For example, Hades, who kicked the crotch of to place one's pride, was actually a punishment paladin. In the end, this author made a mistake and wrote the wrong skills. There was no way to correct it. Everyone, please pretend that you did not notice. The player who just went up is Netherworld King's expert, Shura. Player Shura. After the host introduced the players, Wang Yu was dumbfounded. Wasn't Shura the one who was killed by second brother in the last round? That's a Azura fiend. Everyone was speechless. They're all professional players. Can't you leave some face for them? You can't even call out their full names. Wang Yu scratched his head. Then does their team have someone called Blood Fiend? Yes. Wuji pointed at a shield warrior from Netherworld King. That person is Blood Fiend. F***CK. Wang Yu broke down. They can even name it like that? This is Netherworld King's style. Wuji explained. If there's Hades, then there's Grim Reaper's left and right hand. If there's Azura Fiend, then there's Azura and Blood Fiend. Aren't they afraid of being called gangsters? Wang Yu was dumbfounded. Wuji said indifferently. You look so similar to Old Demon. If we don't call them gangsters, then they've played together for so many years. How could they be gangsters? Instead, it's the other teams who might mess things up. Everyone must be careful in the team battles. Wang Yu, everyone said that this team was honest and straightforward. Who would have thought that they would be so sinister in their naming? Maybe this was the only strategy they could think of. Chapter 1260. The Knight class was the most unique out of all the classes. This class could attack and deal damage. It was the standard jack of all trades. Knights also had a unique aura skill that could increase the attack and defense of surrounding teammates, and even deal damage to their targets. Even more impressive was that knights could use the power of charms to change the shape of their weapons. Not only could they wield any sword, spear, or halberd, they could even turn their weapons into gloves and use them as fighters. Because of this, however, the knight's controls were more complicated. Players who weren't skilled enough to play this class would easily get flustered. They might even knock themselves out before hitting their opponents. It was much more comfortable to play the relatively simple warrior class. Therefore, knights and fighters were almost always unpopular classes. Because this class had extremely high requirements for players, anyone who dared to play this class and was relatively outstanding was an expert. As an expert of this class, Shura's overall quality wasn't too low. He could also control the knight class. Although he was a guardian knight that mainly tanked monsters, he was recognized as the #1 expert in the entire Underworld team, aside from Grim Reaper's left hand. On top of that, this kid was quite good-looking. Not only did he have a pretentious name, but he also liked to wear white armor. It could be said that he was the face of the Underworld team and had far more fans than anyone else. As soon as this kid stepped onto the stage, the audience couldn't help but go wild. Shura! Shura! The cheers rang through the entire arena. As Wang Yu listened to the cheers of the audience, he couldn't help but think of the match between Underworld and Skyfire not too long ago. He couldn't help but wonder whose fans would be stronger if Shura and Samadhi Truefire were to fight. Of course, Shura was different from Samadhi Truefire. He definitely had real skills. It wasn't hard to see this from his humble attitude. Due to the fact that the motley crew consisted of amateurs, they weren't very well regarded in the professional scene. However, Azura had always maintained a humble attitude toward the mob, whether it was in front of the stage or behind the scenes. In the face of Yin Lao Air, who had knocked his teammate out of the ring with a series of attacks, Shura was even more cautious. After getting on the ring, Shura raised the shield in his hand, and his whole body shrank behind the shield, ready to fight. Before this, the people of the Quan Jun sect had fought with the Netherworld King realm. Although the Netherworld King realm was chased away by the blood-colored war flag in the end, second brother Een still had a deep impression of Shura. Thus, he tightly grasped his shield and protected his entire body, afraid that he would reveal any flaws. Seeing this, Wang Yu was speechless. These two guys aren't going to confront each other like this until the end of the match, right? Wang Yu understood Yin Lao Air's personality quite well. As long as his opponent didn't make a move, he would definitely be patient enough to wait until the end of the match. No, Wu Ji said. Do you know why this guy is called Azura? I don't know. Wang Yu shook her head. Wu Ji said, it's because this guy has a strong desire to fight. A tank class always has a heart for damage. Sure enough, as soon as Wu Ji finished speaking, Azura moved. With a lesson learned from Azura's blood fiend, Azura naturally wouldn't charge at Yin Lao Air. Instead, he leisurely walked in front of Yin Lao Air, stretched out his left hand, and a huge shadow of a palm grabbed at Yin Lao Air. God's Grip, one of the representative skills of Guardian Knights. It was a devout Guardian Knight who used holy power to summon God's Grip to grab the target. Grab skills had always had high priority. If Yin Lao Air didn't move, he would definitely be grabbed by Azura. If Yin Lao Air moved, he would also reveal an opening. God's Grip's range was much further than a shield warrior's taunt. At this distance, Yin Lao Air definitely wouldn't be able to pull Azura with taunt. Hee. Facing Azura's grip, Yin Lao Air chuckled and took a step forward. He didn't dodge, allowing Azura to grab him. Azura grabbed Yin Lao Air and pulled Yin Lao Air back. Before Yin Lao Air could recover, Azura raised his shield and smashed it at Yin Lao Air. Divine Shield Strike had the same effect as Shield Bash. Both could stun the opponent. Just as Yin Lao Air was about to be hit, Yin Lao Air suddenly roared and used Group Taunt. Taunt was a single target skill. Yin Lao Air couldn't aim at his opponent in a weightless state. However, Group Taunt was an AoE skill that could pull all enemy units around him. Azura stood below Yin Lao Air. Yin Lao Air was caught off guard. It was too late for Azura to dodge. Yin Lao Air's taunt broke through his Divine Shield Strike. F***CK. Yin Lao Air's action surprised everyone again. Meow, my attack was broken by taunt again. Could it be that taunt was the strongest skill in Rebirth? Group Taunt only lasted for 0.5 seconds. Azura's skill was only interrupted. Yin Lao Air, who was in midair, took the opportunity to fall to the ground. He flipped back and stood up. Then, he lowered his head and charged at Azura. The distance between the two of them was less than 2 meters, and there was no gap in Ian's second brother's skills. When Shura recovered, Ian's second brother was already in front of Shura. Azura couldn't dodge in time and could only raise his shield. Boom! The two shields collided with each other, producing a loud noise. Ian Lao Air's divine shield was a complete artifact. Azura's weapon was inferior to Ian Lao Air's, and the shield was enhanced by rune energy. Under this collision, Azura's shield was directly smashed into pieces and turned into a scepter again. However, this time, it blocked Ian Lao Air's attack. Azura wasn't knocked away. Ian Lao Air saw this and smashed his shield on the ground. At the same time, he slammed his feet on the ground. Boom! Another loud noise, and the earth trembled. At the same time, Azura suddenly jumped back and escaped Ian Lao Air's earthquake wave. Collision and earthquake wave were continuously avoided by Azura. Ian Lao Air was shocked. He didn't wait for Azura to land and hurriedly switched to a longsword. He took a step forward and followed Azura, slashing upward. At this moment, Azura's left hand touched the scepter in his right hand. The scepter once again turned into a light shield and used Holy Shield Strike in the air. The shield pressed down from above. Clang! Ian Lao Air's longsword and Azura's shield collided. The priority of Holy Shield Strike was far higher than Rising Dragon Slash. Moreover, Ian Lao Air's Rising Dragon Slash was not as good as a weapon warrior. With a bang, Azura's shield smashed Ian Lao Air to the ground. Ian Lao Air was directly smashed into a stunned state. Azura landed on the ground. The runes in his left hand touched the shield, and the shield turned into a long spear. Azura held the spear with both hands and stabbed at Ian Lao Air's body. Then, with a strong lift, Ian Lao Air was lifted into the air. Azura's spear tip aimed at Ian Lao Air in midair and stabbed 3 times. Each stab could lift Ian Lao Air half a meter. After the 3 stab, Ian Lao Air was lifted 3 meters into the air. Chapter 1261. Bang! Ian Lao Air was sent flying like a baseball. Rising formation. Shura took out a talisman with his left hand and slapped it on the ground. A black magic formation appeared under Ian Lao Air's feet, and Ian Lao Air was once again launched into the air. Skyfall Hammer. Shura leaped high and smashed the giant hammer in his hand onto Ian Lao Air's head. Paladins had the highest priority out of all the classes. Once a Guardian Knight's combo was used, it would truly be impossible to escape. Even with Ian Lao Air's high defense and health, he couldn't even raise his shield in front of Shura. Shura's attack power was average, and Ian Lao Air was extremely durable. The two fought for a full 10 minutes before Ian Lao Air was knocked out of the ring. In the second match, Underworld finally recovered with a score of 5-3. Although the Motley Crew lost, it also showed the audience that a Motley Crew wasn't truly a Motley Crew. Amateurs also had strength. Disregarding everything else, a group of ordinary players was evenly matched with a famous expert in the industry. Moreover, they were currently leading by 2 points. This kind of result was enough to make everyone look at them in a different light. Especially the experts of the major teams. At this moment, they had completely regarded the Motley Crew as an imaginary enemy. 2 ferocious fighters of unfathomable power who looked like twins. An archer who was better at close combat than an assassin. A shameless and despicable priest. A wretched warlock who could summon imps and predict invincible opponents. A brat with dirty moves, and finally, a table tennis expert who could take a beating. Everyone in this combination was not easy to deal with, and it was hard to not be on guard against them. Other opponents could be predicted with common sense, but this group of people might not be able to control the tempo. Unexpectedly, the waters of the first pro league in Rebirth were so deep. As usual, after the second match, both teams continued to rest. After returning to the resting room, Wuji crossed his legs and drank from his teacup. His expression relaxed and relaxed. Baosan could not help but remind him, "We only have a 2-point advantage now. Have you thought about how you're going to play the next round?" A 2-point advantage wasn't considered much in the Pro League. After all, the last match was a team battle. With the cooperation between pro experts that had been honed for many years, it wasn't impossible for them to win with 0 losses. No matter what was said or done, Netherworld King was still a famous professional team. If they didn't prepare ahead of time, it would be shameful for them to fail at the last minute. Improvise, you hear me? Wuji said proudly, but we don't have to be nervous this time, because their biggest threat in the 3rd round is no longer a threat. The greatest threat? What's that? Wang Yu asked in confusion. In Wang Yu's eyes, there was no one who could pose a threat to him. The others were also confused. In their eyes, everyone from the Netherworld King realm was a threat. Hee. Wuji snickered. What do you think the Netherworld King team lacks the most? Could it be the mind's eye? Mingdu said. Almost. Wuji laughed. What they lack the most is tactics. But now, humph. With Rapid Thunder Sword's meager skills, they won't be able to subdue this group of experts. Xuanjin. Oh, indeed, the stronger a person was, the more arrogant they were. The more honest a person was, the more arrogant they were. The people from Netherworld King Realm were all famous experts. Normally, they had their eyes on the top of their heads. Besides Grim Reaper's left hand, these guys had never submitted to anyone else. Grim Reaper's left hand's eyes grew on the top of his head, and he didn't put anyone in his eyes. This was also the reason why their entire team was lacking in tactics. Grim Reaper's left hand's word was law, and everyone else obeyed him unconditionally. Naturally, the team style would be as straightforward as Grim Reaper's left hand's personality. Although Rapid Thunder Sword had tactical thinking, this guy came out of nowhere and acted like he was the best in the world. This kind of guy definitely wouldn't be able to integrate into the Netherworld King Realm team. Originally, if Rapid Thunder Sword had an outstanding battle record, everyone might give him some face. But now, Rapid Thunder Sword's battle record against Xuanjin's team was 0. Of course, this guy who didn't have much prestige in the team had no right to speak. All this while, Wuji had been worried that Rapid Thunder Sword would change Netherworld King Realm's tactical style. But after 2 matches, it didn't matter much if Netherworld King Realm had Rapid Thunder Sword or not. Just as Wuji said, at this time, in the Netherworld King Realm team's lounge, Grim Reaper's left hand was arranging tactics. Their tactical core, Rapid Thunder Sword, was squeezed in the corner and couldn't even speak. After Grim Reaper's left hand finished explaining his tactics, Rapid Thunder Sword interrupted. Now that our score is behind Xuanjin, we should adopt a deeper level of tactics and make full use of the terrain. What do you know? In the end, before Rapid Thunder Sword could finish, he was rudely interrupted. Rapid Thunder Sword anxiously roared. You guys keep losing because you don't know tactics. As the saying goes, don't hit people in the face, don't expose people's shortcomings. The Netherworld King Realm team had been losing for 3 years in a row, so this topic was very taboo. Rapid Thunder Sword, this kid, actually touched it and exposed their shortcomings in front of these guys. Naturally, these guys wouldn't be polite, so everyone ridiculed. Yeah, no matter how we lose, we can still win a match. Master Tactician, can you explain why you were beaten to the ground by an amateur? Rapid Thunder Sword was speechless. Just as he was about to say something, Grim Reaper's right hand, who had always been at odds with him, said, Brother Thunder, look at you. Have you thought about how to complain to the boss? Oomph. Rapid Thunder Sword coldly snorted. It's good that you know. These arrogant guys from Netherworld King Realm were not the kind of people who would listen to others because of money. It would have been fine if Rapid Thunder Sword did not say this, but once he said this, it directly aroused everyone's anger. Grim Reaper's left hand frowned and said, Our Netherworld King Realm team has been around for so long, but this is the only year that we have a sponsor. It's not that we aren't used to hard times. Go and talk to the boss. At most, he will pay the penalty fee, and we will continue to be carefree. Boss, well said. The others applauded and once again showed a look of worship to Grim Reaper's left hand. I didn't mean that. Hearing this, Rapid Thunder Sword was speechless. It seemed that the misunderstanding between him and these guys could not be cleared. Humph. Grim Reaper's left hand coldly snorted and said, If that's not what you mean, then stand aside. Don't go on the next match. It's still better for us brothers to cooperate. Rapid Thunder Sword completely collapsed. Chapter 1262. Grim Reaper's left hand was a man of his word. He said that Rapid Sword would not be allowed to participate in the third match. He didn't even give Rapid Sword the right to enter the game as a coach. Poor Rapid Sword watched as Grim Reaper's left hand and the others entered the game. He felt very wronged. After entering the game, Wuji smiled in satisfaction when he saw that Rapid Sword wasn't there. This result was within Wuji's expectations. When he first saw Rapid Sword, Wuji could tell that this guy's EQ wasn't very high. To deal with Hades, Rapid Sword had to be flattered. It was already a miracle that Rapid Sword wasn't beaten to death because of his way of talking. As expected, after 2 consecutive rounds of targeting, Rapid Lightning Sword was directly kicked out of the competition. What could be more joyous than the infighting of their opponents? The third match began, and Hades chose the map. Grim Reaper's left hand chose the Dark Forest without hesitation. The Dark Forest was a very dark forest terrain. Apart from being smaller than the Despair Forest, it didn't look any different. The Dark Forest terrain was commonly used by Hades. Not only could it reduce vision, but it could also cause great psychological pressure to the opponents with a top sniper like Grim Reaper's left hand. With Grim Reaper's left hand's ability, no one could guarantee that they could escape from his snipe. Well, I have to add, except for Wang Yu. Grim Reaper's left hand's maximum shooting range and vision was 100 meters, far exceeding that of ordinary archers. After activating Snipe, the shooting range could be doubled. The distance from one side to the other in the Dark Forest was only 100 meters. In other words, if Grim Reaper's left hand stood on the other side of the map, his shooting range could cover the entire map. As for the others, they only needed to protect Grim Reaper's left hand. People said that the highest realm of tactics was no tactics at all. This kind of shameless stance was definitely in line with Hades' style and could give everyone a headache. However, Chuanjin had always been unpredictable and Wuji was famous for his tactics. Naturally, he would be defeated by such a simple and crude style. These fellows from a Netherworld King realm always changed their tactics. As an old fan of the Netherworld King realm, Wuji was able to guess what they were thinking as he saw this scene. Times had progressed so quickly. How could he win if he kept using the same move? After being teleported into the arena, the first thing Wuji did was release his pet snake. After the little snake circled around everyone, the audience was dumbfounded. Then, a thick pink mist enveloped the Chuanjin members. Vision was the most important thing for an archer. Without vision, an archer's skills were basically useless. The Grim Reaper's left hand was an awakened master, so he was able to locate the opponent's location by listening. However, the two of them were hundreds of meters away from each other, so it was difficult for him to hear the opponent's location. After all, archers had eagle eyes, but not rabbit ears. Having lost his target, Death's left hand panicked. The map was not big, and the Grim Reaper's left hand was not an agile archer. If he blindly shot arrows into the fog, it would be easy to expose his position. His character in the game could run as fast as an Olympic champion. With a distance of 100 meters, the opponent's assassin could reach him in less than 10 seconds. Of course, as long as he shot arrows, his position would be exposed. However, as long as the target was in his field of vision, the Grim Reaper's left hand was confident that he could kill all the attackers while the target was moving. Even if it was a melee fight, he had so many warriors around him. But now, everyone in Chuanjin was blocked by the fog. Once they lost their target, it would be difficult to find them again in this environment. In the thick fog, the Chuanjin members asked Wuji, now that the Grim Reaper's left hand has lost his vision, are we just going to stay here and wait for them to die? How is that possible? Wuji said, is such a shameless style my style? Is it someone else's style? Everyone gave him the middle finger. Don't worry about these details. Wuji chuckled. Now that Team Netherworld is behind us by 2 points, they must be more anxious than us. So, they will definitely find an opportunity to attack us. Everyone was puzzled. How can they attack without a vision? Wuji laughed. They still have people. With the Grim Reaper's left hand's ability, As long as someone commands him, it won't be difficult to hit the target. He will definitely send his people over later. Old cow, old monster. Take this chance and climb up the tree. Okay. The Wang Yu brothers nodded and jumped up the tree. Just as Wuji expected, Team Netherworld, who was behind by 2 points, could not afford to waste time with Chuanjin's group. Seeing that the thick fog had not dissipated for a long time, Grim Reaper's left hand and the others immediately became anxious. So he pointed to the assassin beside him and said, "Ghost, go and take a look." Ghost was the little assassin who had been tricked by Wuji in the tavern. Seeing that Grim Reaper's left hand wanted him to go over, he could not help but say in surprise, "Big brother, do you really think that those guys from Chuanjin are vegetarians? They have so many people, I will die if I go." "What are you afraid of?" Grim Reaper's left hand said. "You don't need to show yourself. Just stand behind them. I will know their coordinates when I see your position." Indeed, there was a coordinate display between the same team, which was shown as a red dot on the mini-map interface. As long as Ghost stood behind the target, Grim Reaper's left hand could basically confirm the opponent's position. "It's a good idea," Ghost thought and said, "but their priest is very insidious. He knows how to go anti-stealth." Wuji, this scum, had left an indelible shadow in Ghost's heart in the tavern. Anti-stealth. Grim Reaper's left hand was stunned for a moment before he said in a low voice, "If that's the case, all of you go." "All of us go," Hades said in surprise. "Who will protect you?" Grim Reaper's left hand said, "Asher and Old Blood are enough. Besides, with the 7 of you going, do you think you can stop them from coming over?" This, Hades thought for a moment and said, "That makes sense. Let's go." Saying that, Hades waved at the others, and they split into 2 groups and walked in the direction of the motley crew. When they were about 50 meters away from the thick fog, the figures of Hades and the others fell into Yang Na's sight. Yang Na reminded everyone, "Everyone, get ready, they are coming." "Got it." Yin Lao Air responded and raised a shield in front of the 3 cloth-armored classes. Wuji, Chun Xiang, and Ming Du Bao Sen also moved to the back of the team, holding his sword horizontally to guard against the assassins behind him. At the same time, North Sea Yu Yu quietly turned invisible. Chapter 1263. They covered a distance of several dozen meters in an instant. As soon as Wuji and the others got into formation, Hades and the others arrived at the thick fog. "Pa!" Wuji snapped his fingers and put away the illusionary snake. The thick fog dissipated, and the mob suddenly appeared in front of the Netherworld King Realm Group. The sudden appearance of Wuji and the others gave the Netherworld King Realm Group a fright. They hurriedly got into position and were about to rush over. Most of the Netherworld King Realm Group were warriors. If they rushed over together, Yin Lao Air definitely wouldn't be able to block them alone. But just as the Netherworld King Realm Group got into position, a black circle appeared on the ground. Then, a dark barrier surrounded them. Hades and the others collapsed. F***CK. It's that green hat warlock. Boss, quickly support us. Bang! Before they finished speaking, there was an explosive sound of a bowstring, and a thick feather arrow flew toward the Chuanjin group. However, the moment the Netherworld King Realm Group was surrounded, the mob didn't rush to attack. Instead, they all stood behind Yin Lao Air. Yin Lao Air raised his shield, and Wuji put invincibility on Yin Lao Air's head. Duong! There was a loud sound, and the arrow from the Death God's left hand hit Yin Lao Air's shield. Yin Lao Air was knocked back several steps by the powerful impact. At the same time, Wang Yu and Heng Xing, who were on the tree, had also determined the location of the Grim Reaper's left hand based on the direction in which the arrow had flown. The 2 of them leaped onto another tree, stepped on the branches, and dashed over. Duong! The second arrow from the Death God's left hand hit Yin Lao Air and forced him to take a few steps back. The immobilizing effect on Hades and the others also disappeared. Relying on the cover of the Death God's left hand, they rushed toward the Chuanjin group. At this time, Yin Lao Air smashed a shield on the ground and shouted, "Bastard!" The people from the Netherworld King Realm were involuntarily provoked. Harris hurriedly shouted into the party channel, "Boss, the shield is gone. Shoot." Death's left hand received the message and took out 3 arrows from his quiver. He placed them on the bowstring, took a deep breath, aimed, and pulled the bowstring. Just as the Grim Reaper's left hand was about to release the bowstring, Wang Yu suddenly descended from the sky and shouted, "Look here! F***CK!" Wang Yu's shout scared the Grim Reaper's left hand half to death. The Grim Reaper's left hand flicked upwards, and 3 arrows flew into the sky. Wang Yu twisted his body in midair and dodged the 3 arrows. He then kicked the Grim Reaper's left hand's head. At the critical moment, Bloody Fiend raised a shield and rushed to the front of Death's left hand. Bang! Wang Yu stomped on the shield, forcing Shueisha to take a few steps back. Then, he somersaulted backward and landed steadily on the ground. F***CK! The face of Bloody Fiend, who was kicked away, suddenly showed a look of horror. Bloody Fiend was a powerful heavy warrior, the nemesis of all agility professions. Even if he was hit by an arrow from an archer like the Grim Reaper's left hand, he would only take a few steps back. His opponent, a mere grandmaster of combat, had such judgment. He was indeed as crazy as the rumors said. Shocked, Bloody Fiend slightly calmed down. He grabbed a shield with one hand and did not wait for Wang Yu to dodge. He raised his middle finger and shouted, "Bastard!" Wang Yu was involuntarily pulled over. In the blink of an eye, the Grim Reaper's left hand pulled the bowstring and shot an arrow at Wang Yu's face. Seeing that Wang Yu was about to be shot in the head by an arrow, the most shocking scene since the start of the competition appeared. Wang Yu's body was slightly tilted and his hands suddenly pushed up diagonally, pushing the arrow shot by the Grim Reaper's left hand. The arrow was pushed diagonally upwards and was forcibly pushed away from its original trajectory. It brushed past Wang Yu's body and flew into the distance. Seeing this scene, the entire audience was shocked. This was also possible? Especially the Grim Reaper's left hand, Azura, and Bloody Fiend. They were so shocked that their jaws dropped to the ground. Others did not know how powerful the Grim Reaper's left hand's arrow was, but they were well aware of it. The Grim Reaper's left hand added all his points to strength. If a normal profession was not a tank, they would not be able to withstand an arrow. Such a powerful arrow had actually been swatted off course by someone. Was this person even human? After dodging the Grim Reaper's left hand's arrow, Wang Yu was also pulled in front of Bloody Fiend. Bloody Fiend raised a shield and used a shield bash. Wang Yu rolled on the ground and rolled behind Bloody Fiend. The Grim Reaper's left hand's bow was once again on the bowstring and aimed at Wang Yu. Unhurriedly, Wang Yu pulled Shueisha into her arms with both of her hands and suddenly turned around. Duong! The Grim Reaper's left hand shot an arrow on Bloody Fiend's shield. Bloody Fiend's small face turned pale, and he shouted, "Azura, help me!" Azura, who was on the side, took out a charm and slapped it on his scepter. The scepter turned into a spear of light and stabbed at Wang Yu. Wang Yu smiled faintly. He lifted his right foot and stepped on Azura's spear of light on the ground. Although Azura's judgment was high, it also depended on who he was compared to. Wang Yu was a grandmaster of combat and naturally could not compare, but how could Mother Earth be blasphemed? The Shura used a lot of strength in this spear attack, and he almost swayed himself. In anger, Azura switched the spear of light to a shield of light and buried his head to charge. At this time, another voice came. "Boss, why didn't you wait for me for a while? Show that you know Qinggong." Azura quickly turned his head and saw an identical grandmaster of combat fall from the tree. Who else could it be but Evildoers Run Wild? Evildoers Run Wild landed, looked at Wang Yu, and jumped toward Grim Reaper's left hand. Damn! Azura quickly turned around and raised his shield of light to protect Grim Reaper's left hand. Bang! Crash! Evildoers Run Wild punched Azura's shield of light into pieces. Azura, who was panicking, put away his scepter, took out a gravity charm, and threw it on the ground. Evildoers Run Wild kicked the gravity charm away and raised his hand to slap Azura in the face. Yes, a slap in the face. Evildoers Run Wild was not as picky as Wang Yu. This kid hit whatever he wanted. Azura's small face was so close that evildoers run wild would feel itchy if he did not slap him. Bastard. Seeing Azura's small face was slapped, Azura's fans rushed out angrily and cursed at evildoers run wild. Azura was also ashamed and angry. He raised his scepter and was about to fight with evildoers run wild. At this time, Grim Reaper's left hand raised his bow and let go. Bang! An arrow flew straight to evildoers run wild. Evildoers run wild was more straightforward than Wang Yu. This kid jumped back and crossed his hands to face the flying arrow. Pa! The arrow was smashed into 2 pieces. Damn! Grim Reaper's left hand saw this scene and almost had a heart attack. Are these 2 Grandmasters of Combat my nemesis? Why is one more abnormal than the other? Chapter 1264 F***CK. Hearing evildoers run wild's words, the audience was stunned again. They didn't expect evildoers run wild to also be a guy who put points in strength. However, this kid was a martial artist, so his reaction was fast, so he gave the illusion of agility. Moreover, as the richest businessman in the game, although evildoers run wild put points in strength, he also stacked a lot of agility. It could be seen that the strongest thing in the game was RMB. Stall them. Grim Reaper's left hand yelled, turned around, and ran. Grim Reaper's left hand was the tactical core of the team. If Grim Reaper's left hand was killed, the Underworld team would probably lose. Shura and Bloodshaw received the order and pounced on Hung Xing and Wang Yu, as if they didn't care about their own lives. Azura and Bloody Fiends were also top experts. No matter how strong Wang Yu and evildoers run wild were, they were restricted by their classes. Facing these 2 experts who risked their lives, it was really a little troublesome. Seeing Bloody Fiends rush at him, Wang Yu wanted to flash away. However, as soon as Wang Yu flashed away, Bloody Fiends threw the shield in his hand forward. Bang! A huge shield appeared behind Wang Yu. Bloody Fiend's shield was connected to an iron chain. At the same time, Bloody Fiends pulled the iron chain in his hand and flew behind Wang Yu. Then, he activated Group Ridicule, and Wang Yu was sucked to Bloody Fiend's side again. Bloody Fiends had now lost hope of killing Wang Yu. He only hoped to stall Wang Yu to give Grim Reaper's left hand time to run away. After Ridicule pulled Wang Yu, Bloody Fiends reached out to grab Wang Yu. Wang Yu turned sideways, grabbed Bloody Fiend's wrist with his left hand, and grabbed Bloody Fiend's elbow with his right hand. He pushed and pulled, and at the same time, stretched his foot back and kicked Bloody Fiend's ankle. Bloody Fiends lost his balance and was thrown to the ground by Wang Yu. After taking down Blood Fiend, just as Wang Yu was about to chase after him again, Blood Fiend put away his shield and rushed over to hug Wang Yu's thigh with both hands. Whoa! It was an eye-opener for the audience. They didn't expect such a low-end playstyle to exist in the game. F***CK. Wang Yu was depressed. Damn, he was still a professional player. Did he not care about his dignity at all? He actually used such a shameless move of hugging someone's thigh in front of everyone's eyes. Of course, for Blood Fiends, as long as they could win the competition, dignity was nothing. Needless to say, under the restraint of their classes, a technical player like Wang Yu really had no way of dealing with this kind of persistent playstyle. Blood Fiend's desperate move was quite effective against Wang Yu. Wang Yu, who was hugged by his thigh, couldn't move. He could only come back to his senses and hit Blood Fiend's head fiercely. Blood Fiend was also full of courage. No matter how hard Wang Yu hit him, he hugged him tightly and didn't fight back. As a shield warrior, Blood Fiend's resistance and endurance were the basic professional ethics. He also had all kinds of special tank-type skills, such as increased red blood defense and HP recovery when receiving fatal damage. Even a ruthless person like Wang Yu had to punch Blood Fiend's head more than a dozen times before Blood Fiend was completely killed. The situation on Evildoer's Run Wild side was also very intense. Although Shura didn't have the taunt skill like Blood Fiend, he had high defense and many skills. After receiving the order from Grim Reaper's left hand, Shura put a defensive aura on himself, then condensed a light shield again and slammed into Evildoers Run Wild. Evildoers Run Wild didn't dodge when he saw this. He squatted and stretched his hands forward to grab the edge of Shura's shield. A full-strength archer was already so fierce, so a full-strength Grandmaster of Combat didn't need to be mentioned. Evildoers Run Wild directly pulled Shura up from the ground. Then he twisted his waist and threw his arms back. Shura was thrown behind Evildoers Run Wild. Evildoers Run Wild wanted to chase Grim Reaper's left hand, but archers were born with a movement bonus. Even if an archer ran at full strength, it wasn't easy for a Grandmaster of Combat to catch up. Evildoers Run Wild ran 2 steps forward. He knew that he couldn't outrun Grim Reaper's left hand, so he simply turned back and continued to beat Shura. Shura wanted to cry but had no tears and asked, "Big brother, why are you back again? I can't catch up with him, but I can't catch up with you." Evildoers Run Wild yelled and rushed to beat him. Shura screamed, "Don't hit my face." Holographic games weren't like the keyboard and mouse MMORPG of the past. In this kind of simulation mode, everyone pursued a balance of attributes. Characters with extreme playstyles like adding points to full strength were generally trash, but that was only for ordinary people. In the hands of people like Evildoers Run Wild, adding points to full strength was better than other ways of adding points. Only with great strength could miracles happen. The poor Shura was attacked by Evildoers Run Wild. 1 punch and the shield was broken. 2 punches and the halo was gone. 3 punches and his health bar was more than half. 4 punches and his health bar was almost empty. Such a violent Grandmaster of Combat made everyone's blood boil. F***CK. A full-strength archer was already so awesome, but a Grandmaster of Combat was even crazier than a full-strength archer. Could it be that the ultimate way to add points in this game was to add points to full strength? Because of this match, all the players saw the power of adding points to full strength. Hence, many new players in the game tried to imitate the method of adding points to full strength. The result was out of control. The players' gaming experience was extremely poor, and some even caused trouble. In the end, the game company had to introduce a tool to wash the points. While making a windfall, it also pulled the players back from the edge of despair. Of course, this is a story for the future. I'll write about it in detail in the future. Shura and Bloodfiend's desperate struggle bought Death's left hand more than 10 seconds to escape. Although 10 seconds didn't sound long, it was crucial in a game battle. The distance between the 2 sides of the map was only about 100 meters, and the slow-moving warriors only needed 10 seconds to run from one end to the other. 10 seconds was enough for Death's left hand to escape. The light in the dark forest was very dim, and everyone's vision was limited. When Wang Yu and Shura finished off their opponents, Death's left hand had completely disappeared. Hades and the others who were fighting with Wuji saw the news of Shura and Bloodfiend's death. They were nervous and asked, "Boss, are you okay?" I'm fine. Death's left hand, who was hiding in the corner, replied, "I'm already far away now." That's good. Hades and the others breathed a sigh of relief, and then urged, "Hurry up and help. This group of bastards is very difficult to deal with." Don't worry. I'm coming." After Death's left hand replied, he raised the longbow in his hand, knocked an arrow, and aimed at the Chuanjin people. Inhale pulled a bowstring. Just when Death's left hand was about to shoot the arrow, Death's left hand's feet suddenly sank, and a tendon break effect appeared on his head. Immediately after, a figure drilled out from the ground behind Death's left hand, raised a dagger, and struck the back of Death's left hand's head. Dizziness. Before Death's left hand could react to what was going on, Death's left hand felt a chill on his back, and his health bar dropped to the bottom. Chapter 1265. Seeing the system prompt, Hades and the others were dumbfounded. Didn't the boss run away? How did he get killed by an assassin? Even the Wang Yu brothers were dumbfounded. They asked in the channel, "Old Yu, how did you come out?" Wuji told me to follow him. Baiming Yoyu said calmly. Hee. Wuji laughed. I knew that kid would throw away the rook to save the king. Why didn't you tell us? Evildoers Run Wild said, unhappily. "Don't you trust me?" Evildoers Run Wild was the only outsider in Chuanjin. Wuji couldn't blame Evildoers Run Wild for being sensitive. Wuji said calmly, "Of course I trust you. I just don't trust your acting skills." Evildoers Run Wild. Indeed, Grim Reaper's left hand was not a top-class expert for nothing. If Evildoers Run Wild and Wang Yu had held back in a battle just now, Grim Reaper's left hand would definitely be able to tell and would definitely be on guard. If Bai Mingyu was on guard against Grim Reaper's left hand, he might not be able to beat him in close combat. However, seeing that Wang Yu and Evildoers Run Wild were so eager to kill him, Grim Reaper's left hand was convinced that there were no more enemies around. Even so, Bai Mingyu had already chosen to attack when Grim Reaper's left hand drew his bow. After all, at that time, Grim Reaper's left hand would be focused on the Chuanjin people and would not pay attention to what was below him. In the blink of an eye, the Netherworld King realm had lost 3 people. Not only were the 2 tanks dead, but Grim Reaper's left hand had also passed away. As the core of Underworld's tactics, with the death of Grim Reaper's left hand, Hades and the others completely lost their backbone and simply fought without any order. Hades and the others were all professional players. Their strength was comparable to the 7 people left behind by Chuanjin, with the exception of Yang Na. When this group of fellows went crazy, it was like a cornered beast fighting. It was absolutely terrifying. The 3 melee classes lined up in a row, lowered their heads, and charged at Wuji and the others. At this moment, Bao San was defending the rear. The Chuanjin group only had Yin Lao Air at the front. Naturally, they couldn't block the attack of 2 warriors and 1 rider. Chun Xiang hurriedly summoned an evil spirit and blocked the first wave of attacks. Meanwhile, Death God's right hand and Azura Fiend stood back to back as Chun Xiang activated Whirlwind Slash. A 2-man joint attack. The double combo attack was a special combination of classes. The same combo attack also included the Grandmaster of Combat's Whirlwind Kick. Kids who have played Double Slice Dragon should know this. It required an extremely high level of teamwork to be able to use it. Compared to a solo skill, whether it was attack range or damage, it wasn't as simple as 1+1. Not only did the 2 warriors simultaneously cast Whirlwind Slash, but the damage dealt was also incredibly high. Everything within a 5-meter radius was within the range of the 2 Whirlwind Slashes. Seeing this move, the Chuanjin group could not help but be shocked. They hurriedly retreated. Death God's right hand and Azura Fiend followed closely behind. Just as Mingdu was about to cast a spell to kill the 2 of them, Ghost suddenly appeared behind Mingdu and stabbed Mingdu into white light. To place one's pride, and Bao San punched him to death. At the same time, Death God's right hand and Azura Fiend had already caught up to Chuanjin's group. Chun Xiang hurriedly released thorns to bind the 2 of them. However, who knew that their Whirlwind Slash would have a super armor effect? Chun Xiang's control skill was immediately broken free. Seeing this, Chun Xiang gritted his teeth and commanded his evil spirit to surround the 2 of them. Then, he activated Undead Blast. Bang, bang, bang. 7 bangs were omitted here. After a series of explosions, Death God's right hand and Azura Fiend perished together with Chun Xiang's evil spirit. Without the protection of the evil spirit, Hades switched the long sword in his hand to a lance. He forcibly broke through the defensive line and rushed into Chuanjin's group. Then he stabbed Exquisite Dream's head. Exquisite Dream was only an archer. Her body was very weak and fragile. She was directly turned into white light. Immediately after, Hades swung his lance horizontally and swept it towards to place one's pride. As the saying goes, an inch longer is an inch stronger. To place one's pride was having a hard time facing Hades, who was holding a lance head-on. Seeing this, Bao San also turned around and joined the battle. After their formation was broken apart by Hades, they fell into utter chaos. The 3 of them fought in a chaotic melee, moving in all sorts of positions. Yang Na, Wuji, and Chun Xiang wanted to intervene, but they were afraid that they would accidentally injure their own people. Thus, they aimed their spears at the remaining 3 from the Netherworld King realm. These 3 people were an archer and 2 mages. Their damage output was very high. Although Chuanjin only had Yang Na as a damage output player, she had a crowd control and a healer. The 2 sides were in a stalemate as soon as they started fighting. Inlao Air, who was in the middle, looked left and right, then lowered his head and rushed towards Hades. As one of the experts of Team Netherworld, Hades' strength could be called fierce. He shouted and roused his spirits. He brandished his lance and easily dealt with the siege of Bao San and to place one's pride. At this time, with the sudden addition of Inlao Air, he unexpectedly still had the strength to resist. To place one's pride only now realized that in his duel with Hades, if Hades hadn't underestimated him and he hadn't kicked his crotch, it wouldn't have been long before he was stabbed to death. With the addition of Inlao Air, the 3 of them had a little more defensive power. However, Hades' positioning was quite treacherous. Every time Bao San and to place one's pride were about to attack him, he would always sneak behind Inlao Air, making it impossible for the 2 to attack him. Inlao Air had instead become Hades' shield. It's quite lively here. Just as everyone was locked in battle, Wang Yu and evildoers Run Wild jumped down from the tree. Bang bang. 2 white lights lit up. The 2 of them had killed a mage each. The remaining archer panicked and was suddenly shot out of the arena by Yang Na's arrow. At this time, Hades was the only one left in Team Netherworld. Hades was a classic expert who went against the wind. The deaths of his teammates not only didn't cause Hades' morale to plummet, but it made him even braver. Roar! With a knight's battle cry, Hades looked at to place one's pride in fear, turned around, and stabbed to place one's pride to death. He then jumped back to pull away from Bao San and Inlao Air. He pointed at the Chuanjin players and loudly provoked, "You bunch of trash who bully with numbers. Do you dare to fight me one-on-one?" Hearing Hades' words, everyone looked at Wang Yu. Evildoers Run Wild even said in amusement, "Oh, there's really someone who doesn't look at the almanac when courting death?" Wang Yu waved at Bao San and Inlao Air and said, "You 2 stand back. I'll fight him one-on-one." With that, Wang Yu dashed towards Hades like an arrow. Bao San and Inlao Air shouted at Wang Yu awkwardly, "Old cow, don't underestimate him. He's very strong." Just now, bang! Before the 2 finished speaking, a white light lit up under Wang Yu's feet. At the same time, Wang Yu turned around and asked Bao San and Inlao Air, "What were you 2 talking about?" Chapter 1266. The people from the Quanjin sect loved to compare with each other. All along, this group of fellows had always treated Wang Yu as their target. Seeing the opponent that the 3 of them couldn't even defeat get kicked to death by Wang Yu, Inlao and Bao San felt despair in their hearts. Did they have to be like this? Could it kill them to be more reserved? Hades was the last contestant in the underworld world. After he was kicked to death by Wang Yu, the system announced at the same time, Motley Crowd Battle Team 1. Underworld was once again stopped at the top 8. However, the people from Underworld were quite open-minded. Grim Reaper's left hand didn't regret kicking Rapid Thunder's sword out of the team. After all, in this match, Grim Reaper's left hand saw the true strength of his opponent and was convinced of his loss. In the face of absolute strength, tactics could only delay death at most. With Wang Yu and evildoers Run Wild, the opponent was in an invincible position. Even if Rapid Thunder Sword took the field to command, the result would be the same. They would only be able to kill 2 more players from Chuanjin. Since they were going to lose anyway, they might as well do it in their own way. This way, they would have a clear conscience and not lose the original style of Underworld. This was also why the people from the Quanjin sect liked the Netherworld King's battle team. If a person didn't have their own style, wouldn't they be an ordinary person? For example, Uncle Nyo. Even though he had such a style, everyone still liked him. Well, back to the main topic. After successfully advancing to the top 4, Ragtag Team completely changed the impression that grassroots players had in the hearts of the players. They even gained a group of fans. As soon as Wang Yu and the others left the competition room, they were surrounded by a large group of people holding microphones and cameras, asking them questions. Nowadays, competitive gaming was already a national sport. News of gaming stars, sports stars, and entertainment stars was always the headlines. To be able to advance to the top four was absolute strength. At this time, this grassroots team of ragtag team had successfully advanced, so the reporters naturally surrounded them like flies. Wang Yu didn't like being surrounded by people, but the people from Xiwanjin liked the feeling of being admired. A group of people stroked their hair and posed coquettishly in front of the camera. To place one's pride, that brat almost got into a fight with Mingdu for stealing the spotlight. In the end, he was just an amateur player who had never seen the world. Chun Xiang even said wretchedly, "I want to be a reporter too. I heard that some people are willing to do anything to become famous." Wu Ji said lightly, "I'm afraid you can't." "Why?" Chun Xiang was puzzled. Wu Ji laughed and said, "As a reporter, you have to run fast. Your old arms and legs." Chun Xiang, there was something wrong with this bunch of gaming reporters. They didn't ask anything about the game at all. Instead, they asked about privacy. For example, how old was Yang Na? Was Ling Longming married? These kinds of private matters were fine, but Mu Zixian also asked Mu Zixian about her relationship with Wang Yu and when they were going to have children. No matter how good Wang Yu's temper was, he was still a little annoyed to be questioned like this. Fortunately, Wang Yu was quick-witted. He pulled to place one's pride and asked, "Do you want all the reporters to follow you?" To place one's pride's eyes were sparkling. "Of course I do. Uncle Nyo, you're the best. Remember what you said." Wang Yu pointed at to place one's pride and shouted, "Make way, he's pooping in his pants." Swoosh! Hearing Wang Yu shout, the reporters all turned their heads and looked at to place one's pride. F***CK. I didn't. To place one's pride was drowned in the reporters' cries. Wang Yu and the others took the opportunity to slip away. The break time was over and the competition continued. To place one's pride was like a broken doll. He curled up in the corner and wanted to cry, but had no tears. The light pillar shone down and the contestants of the second round appeared. Team 9 States and Team Desolate. Wow! Seeing the two teams that were about to go on stage, the audience exclaimed in unison. Wu Ji and the others also couldn't help but sigh. Fate is really an unfathomable thing. Team 9 States originated from the world's former #1 guild, Three Fiends Manor. Their guild leader, 5 Lakes 4 Seas, led the backbone of Three Fiends Manor to make a comeback after Three Fiends Manor closed down 5 years ago. They won 4 consecutive national championships and 2 international championships, winning all kinds of honors for the Chinese gaming circle. They were strong and fully deserved to be the king of the industry. Team Desolate was a bit more complicated. From the name, it could be seen that this team had a great connection with Team 9 States. This was because this group of people were once experts of Three Fiends Manor. They later followed 5 Lakes 4 Seas, but in the end, they were left as substitutes. Thus, Team Desolate's boss, Heaven, Earth, Xian, and Huang led a group of depressed teammates and left Team 9 States to form their own team. For several years, Team Desolate had firmly occupied the second place in the gaming circle. They were jokingly called the Eternal Number 2 by the players. Jokes aside, this group of people's lifelong goal was to surpass Team 9 States, so they were naturally extremely strong. They had always been one of the opponents that all teams feared the most. Team 9 States was only a substitute team, and yet they were able to enter the top tier. One could imagine how strong Three Fiends Manor was at its peak. How powerful was observing fish and water. There were so many heroes in the Three Fiends village. Even without the Quanjin sex interference, such a guild was only a hair's breadth away from falling apart. Unexpectedly, in the quarterfinals, these two teams that had been feuding with each other for a long time would meet. It had to be said that this was really good news for the other teams. The members of the Raging Desolate battle team clenched their fists as they watched the members of the 9 Provinces battle team excitedly. Next, both teams entered the arena. Immediately after, the projections of both teams appeared on the stage. The match between the two teams had officially begun. The match between the world's number one and eternal number two was basically equivalent to the finals. It was not an exaggeration to say that it was a fierce battle. In the first match, Team Desolate chose the map. Team Desolate's captain, Heaven, Earth, Xian, and Huang, glanced at Team Nine States and casually chose to give up. The audience became excited again. What was arrogance? This was it. The setting was the most important factor that could affect the outcome of a match. Against the world's number one team, Heaven, Earth, Xian, and Huang actually chose to give up on the setting. This kind of confidence was clearly looking down on Team Nine States. Everyone could understand why Mysterious Heaven and Earth did this. For such a group of experts to be pulled as substitutes, one could imagine the resentment in their hearts. Of course, seeing Mysterious Heaven and Earth's behavior, Wuji revealed a disdainful expression. He curled his lips and said, "Heaven, Earth, Xian, and Huang, this kid is really childish." He even used this kind of method to create a gimmick. "Oh, what do you mean?" Everyone was puzzled. This was clearly because of hatred. Wuji said disdainfully, "This kid is just using psychological tactics. It's just a one-on-one match. What difference does it make if he gives up the map or not? If he has the ability, why not give up the third match?" Chapter 1267. Aside from Underworld King's team, everyone else in the pro circle was experienced. If even Wuji could see through Heaven, Earth, Mysterious, and Yellow's little tricks, how could Five Lakes Four Seas not see through them? Faced with Mysterious Heaven and Earth's provocation, Five Lakes Four Seas calmly said, "Even though we're old rivals, don't underestimate us." Then, he casually chose the arena. Under everyone's gaze, a white light flashed, and the players of both teams were teleported to the arena. Team Nine States player was an assassin. His ID was 3 Mountains, 5 Peaks. He was the vice captain of Team Nine States and one of their core experts. He was known as the #1 assassin in the country. The assassin class had always been a very strong PK class. Against experts of the same level, as long as it was an assassin class, their chances of winning were much higher than other classes. The strength of the world's #1 assassin, 3 Mountains, 5 Peaks, was even more impressive. At least in Rebirth, this kid had never lost a battle. Thus, he was known as the undefeatable mountain. It should be known that the pro scene was filled with experts of the same level. For 3 Mountains, 5 Peaks to be able to openly accept this title, it could be seen that not only was 3 Mountains, 5 Peaks strong, but he was also very brave. Team Scourge's player was called Great Ravager. He was a new player in Scourge, a warrior. This was his first time playing, so no one knew much about him. The only special thing about him was that his name was very tongue-twisting. However, when Wang Yu saw Great Ravager, he couldn't help but be surprised. He turned his head and asked Evildoers Run Wild, "Do you know this kid?" Evildoers Run Wild touched the back of his head and said, "He looks a little familiar." "What about you?" Wang Yu asked Yang Na. Yang Na stared at Great Ravager and thought for a moment, then carefully said, "Is this person called Guyinshin?" Guyinshin? Hearing Yang Na's words, Evildoers Run Wild wondered, that name sounds familiar. Which Guyinshin? The one from Divine Sword Sect. Wang Yu touched his chin and said, "I didn't think this kid would play games and even enter the pro scene. So it's him." Evildoers Run Wild nodded. "No wonder he looks so familiar." Guyinshin was not a simple person. He was the eldest senior of Divine Sword Sect. After he became successful, he wandered everywhere, and his first stop was the Wang family. The Divine Sword Sect was not a big sect. Wang Yu's father thought that Guyinshin's seniority was too low, so he did not want to bother with him. Who knew that this kid would block the entrance for 3 days and 3 nights? As expected, he was beaten up by Lao Wang. In the end, this brat was not convinced and said that he hadn't eaten for 3 days. He insisted on eating and drinking his fill before challenging Lao Wang to a match. What kind of status did old Wang have? Of course, he wouldn't want to compete with him a second time. Thus, he let Wang Yu, who was strolling at the side, take his place. Wang Yu used a willow branch to pull the kid out of the Wang family. That year, Wang Yu was 14. In the end, everyone agreed that this kid had come to freeload because he couldn't afford to eat. Of course, strength depended on who he was competing with. Gu Yinshin was no match for Wang Yu and his son, but he became the #1 in Divine Sword Sect at such a young age. His talent and strength were not weak. At the very least, evildoers Run Wild did not have a high chance of winning against him. The primeval desolate battle team was indeed cunning. They surprised their opponent in the first round. At the same time, Mingji and Daoxue came over and said, "The bets are open. 3 Mountains, 5 Peaks 1. Great Ravager 1, 5. Anyone want to bet?" Hearing Mingji and Daoxue's words, Wuji and the others said, "Bet my ass. 3 Mountains, 5 Peaks is a veteran expert. They will definitely win. With a 1 win rate, they won't earn anything. Won't they cry if they lose? No bet, no bet." Hee hee. Evildoers Run Wild laughed and said, "Daoxue, come here. I'll bet." "How much?" Mingji and Daoxue asked. Evildoers Run Wild thought for a moment and took out a money pouch. "A small bet is fun, but a large bet is harmful. Let's bet 10,000 gold first. F***K. Everyone broke down. He was a big boss after all. He was so arrogant. 10,000 gold was considered a small bet. Mingji and Daoxue took the money pouch and wrote as he read, 10,000 gold. 3 Mountains, 5 Peaks. Evildoers Run Wild said anxiously, "Who asked you to bet on him?" "Great Ravager." "Bet on him? Brother Demon, are you joking?" Mingji and Daoxue was dumbfounded. Damn, no matter how rich he was, he couldn't let it go to waste. "That's right," Evildoers Run Wild said. "I'm just betting on him. Can I?" "All right, as long as you're happy." Mingji and Daoxue shook his head helplessly. Mingdu and the others sighed. "It's good to be rich. You can spend however you want." Seeing this, Wang Yu smiled and did not say anything. After all, gambling could not be encouraged. While everyone was talking, the match had already begun. 3 Mountains, 5 Peaks immediately activated stealth and disappeared from Great Ravager's sight. The Great Ravager sneered and charged in the direction of the 3 Mountains, 5 Peaks. Seeing Great Ravager's performance, the audience was greatly disappointed. They had thought that Team Scourge's rookie would be amazing, but they did not expect him to be so new. The audience knew that skills could not be casually thrown in a match. This guy did not even know where his opponent was and forcefully used charge. What was the difference between this and teleporting on the spot in LOL? 3 Mountains, 5 Peaks had actually been standing in place the entire time. Seeing Great Ravager charge over, a hint of disdain appeared on his face. He had seen many experts, so he was not interested in this kind of rookie. At this moment, Great Ravager had already reached 3 Mountains, 5 Peaks. 3 Mountains, 5 Peaks calmly dodged to the side, avoiding Great Ravager. He turned around and circled behind Great Ravager, raising his hand and using Gouge. Gouge was an assassin's control skill. It could stun the opponent and was also an assassin's starting skill. By locking the opponent in place and using a combo, the opponent would basically be in red blood. Of course, there were also assassins who did not like to use Gouge to stun their opponents. 3 Mountains, 5 Peaks used Gouge. It was clear that this guy did not underestimate his opponent. His fighting style was still very stable. However, just when everyone thought that Great Ravager was going to be killed by 3 Mountains, 5 Peaks Gouge, Great Ravager suddenly rolled forward, dodging 3 Mountains, 5 Peaks Gouge. 3 Mountains, 5 Peaks then revealed himself in the air. Seeing this scene, everyone could not help but be stunned. They had originally thought that this kid was a rookie. They did not expect him to casually reveal 3 Mountains, 5 Peaks. Interesting. An assassin without stealth was like a tiger without teeth. Their strength would decrease by at least half. As the #1 assassin in the country, 3 Mountains, 5 Peaks would definitely not be like the other assassins. After revealing himself, 3 Mountains, 5 Peaks did not pause at all. He immediately activated swift movement and rushed behind Great Ravager. He once again raised his dagger and used backstab on Great Ravager's back. However, As if Great Ravager had eyes on its back, Great Ravager tilted its body slightly to the right. Three Mountains, Five Peaks attack missed and was thrown forward. At the same time, Great Ravager raised its left elbow and twisted it to the left. Bang! Chapter 1268. Three Mountains, Five Peaks was an assassin. Compared to a warrior, his priority was lower. Sword's Great Ravager's elbow strike was very solid, causing Three Mountains, Five Peaks to take a few steps back. Immediately afterward, Great Ravager turned around and extended his hand, using his grab skill on Three Mountains, Five Peaks. Three Mountains, Five Peaks reacted extremely quickly. He hurriedly jumped back to avoid Great Ravager's grab and activated second stealth. The sword, Great Ravager, did not panic. He stretched out his hand and pushed the sword diagonally forward, sealing the space to the right of the Three Mountains, Five Peaks. At the same time, he kicked out. Bang! Accompanied by a dull thud, the sword named Great Ravager stomped on Three Mountains, Five Peaks. The Three Mountains, Five Peaks was forced to take 2 steps back, revealing itself once again. How is this possible? When the audience saw Three Mountains, Five Peaks being kicked out, they were all shocked. It had to be known that Three Mountains, Five Peaks was invisible, but sword moniker Great Ravager's kick was very accurate and very confident. It was as if he had seen Three Mountains, Five Peaks standing there. Warriors did not have anti-stealth skills. How could they see where their opponents were? Could it be that he cheated? Impossible. Cheating in the Pro League would result in a lifetime ban. This kid must be tired of living. When the Chuanjin people saw this, they shouted loudly, "Damn, this kid also learned martial arts." Chuanjin had been following Wang Yu ever since the game's server had been opened. Naturally, they knew a thing or two about Chuanjin. Whether or not they had learned Kung Fu could be seen from the way they fought. Normal players fought with brute force, but those who learned Kung Fu had all sorts of strange moves. It was hard to tell when a punch would come out of nowhere. Moreover, the most special thing about this sword was that it was called Ju Quebec. This brat was able to detect the Three Mountains, Five Peaks when it was invisible. From this, it could be seen that not only did this brat know martial arts, his level was not low either. Yeah, evildoers run wild grinned. That's why I bet on him. Damn. Everyone was filled with regret. If they had followed evildoers run wild and used Sword Obelisk, they would have made a huge profit. As the person in question, Three Mountains, Five Peaks was also dumbfounded by the kick. However, he was, after all, a professional expert. After being stunned for a moment, he adjusted his state of mind. Now that the 2 stages of stealth had been used up, Three Mountains, Five Peaks no longer had any other means to hide himself. He could only forcefully fight the warrior in close combat. Although warriors were the kings of melee combat and could restrain any melee class, in the face of absolute strength, this so-called restraint was nothing but empty talk. As a top-notch assassin expert, Three Mountains, Five Peaks skills were definitely very impressive. In the next moment, Three Mountains, Five Peaks extended his left hand and pulled out a dagger from behind his back. He then lowered his body and activated swift movement with both daggers in hand as he charged towards Sword's Great Ravager. Seeing this scene, everyone could not help but feel their blood boiling. An assassin and a warrior fighting head-on. This was something that only a heroic expert could do. An assassin was also an agility-based class. While in a haste state, an assassin's movement speed was even faster than an archer's. In the blink of an eye, Three Mountains, Five Peaks had arrived beside Sword Ravager. The dagger in his right hand stabbed forward, aiming for Sword Ravager's heart. Sword Ravager took a step back and used the hilt of the long sword in his right hand to knock Three Mountains, Five Peaks' dagger to the left. At this moment, Three Mountains, Five Peaks grabbed the dagger with his left hand and viciously stabbed at Sword Ravager's neck. Sword Ravager was shocked when he saw this. He hurriedly dodged and swung his right hand diagonally upwards at the same time. Swoosh! A sword light slashed at Three Mountains, Five Peaks' neck. Puff! Three Mountains, Five Peaks turned into a puff of green smoke and then appeared behind Sword Ravager. Shadow Clone. In Rebirth, cloning was almost a common skill. Fighters, archers, rogues, and mages all had their own cloning skills. Although the names were different, the effects were the same. 3 Mountains, 5 Peaks, Gouge, and Backstab were still on cooldown, so he circled his dagger around Sword Ravager's neck and used Cut Throat. -1121, a bright red number floated above Sword Ravager's head, and his health bar dropped by a large chunk. Sword Ravager was also very straightforward. When he slashed 3 Mountains, 5 Peaks clone, Sword Ravager knew that he had been tricked, so he took 3 Mountains, 5 Peaks attack head-on. Just as 3 Mountains, 5 Peaks finished cutting his neck and was about to pull his hand back, Sword Ravager grabbed 3 Mountains, 5 Peaks' arm, bent down, and used his back as a fulcrum to pull. Sword Ravager was a warrior, so his strength was naturally not something 3 Mountains, 5 Peaks could compare to. With a shoulder throw, 3 Mountains, 5 Peaks fell to the ground. Then, Sword Ravager stepped on 3 Mountains, 5 Peaks' chest and raised his weapon to stab 3 Mountains, 5 Peaks 3 times. Puff, puff, puff. The 3 swords stabbed 3 Mountains, 5 Peaks' eyes and neck respectively. At the same time, 3 Mountains, 5 Peaks' eyes were blinded. A blood-red damage appeared above his head. Seeing Sword Ravager's sword technique, Yang Na and Evildoers Run Wild were so shocked that their faces turned pale. Meow. Although Sword Ravager had stabbed 3 times, the kid had stabbed all 3 times at the same time. Such a high attack speed left the 2 experts dumbfounded. Meanwhile, Wang Yu pointed at Sword Ravager on the stage and turned to Evildoers Run Wild and Yang Na. He said in amusement, see that? This is the Divine Sword Sect's ultimate technique, 3 pure ones. Back then, I broke it with my 6 Plum Blossom. I didn't expect that after not seeing him for 10 years, this kid's sword technique has improved so much. The 2 looked at Sword Ravager on the stage, then looked at Wang Yu. They could not help but say, look at his sword technique. How many moves do you think you can block? Wang Yu thought for a moment and said, 1 move. No way. The 2 were shocked. Can this kid kill you instantly? No. Wang Yu waved his hand and said, I'm saying that I can stab him to death in 1 move. F***CK. The 2 gave him the middle finger. You monster. Sword Ravager had been improving for 10 years, and Wang Yu had not been stagnant either. While Sword Juk was working hard, Wang Yu was undergoing even more rigorous training. In addition, Wang Yu was a heaven-defying genius. In the past 10 years, he had left Sword Juk far behind. Such a junior would at most be able to exchange blows with Liu Jia. Most of a normal person's combat power came from their eyes. Even a powerful martial artist like Wang Yu would find it troublesome without the help of his eyes. Moreover, 3 Mountains, 5 Peaks was just a normal person. After his eyes were pierced by Sword Ravager, 3 Mountains, 5 Peaks completely lost his order. After getting up, he held his dagger with both hands and slashed randomly. Such a fighting style that was full of flaws was naturally no match for Sword Ravager. Sword Ravager calmly raised his sword. Crouching, charging, rising dragon, floating, breaking army and rising dragon battle, collapsing mountain and splitting earth slash. A series of consecutive attacks knocked 3 Mountains, 5 Peaks off the stage. Ha! After winning the first round, Heaven, Earth, Black, and Yellow were in a good mood. They raised their heads and provoked 5 Lakes, 4 Seas. Little 5, how is it? Tell your subordinates to keep a low profile. What bullsh *T number 1 assassin in the national server. Hee. That you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.